The Peoria Public Schools District 150 Board of Education meeting for February 23rd, 2015. Would you please call the roll?
Here.
Here.
Present.
Here. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any announcements this evening by board members? Okay, Dr. Lathan.
Would like to recognize Tree Wind K-8 School who are in the pre-authorization stage for International Baccalaureate Program. Thank them for decorating our boardroom this evening. Our March 18th Parent University will be held at Tree Wind. So thank you to Principal Andrews and her staff for decorating the display boards.
Anybody else? Okay, that brings us to district presentations. Dr. Lathan?
Yes, we'd like to introduce to the board tonight career cruising. We've had held a presentation at our previous parent university as it relates to career cruising, Ms. McKinnon, and we have two of our counselors that are here to share information on career cruising. It's a journey that we're embarking on as a district for our students, once again preparing them, come down, to be college and career ready as we move forward.
Good evening. Good evening, President Wolfmeyer and distinguished board members and Superintendent Dr. Lathan. Tonight I have the pleasure of sharing a wonderful tool with you called Career Cruising. In January 2014, we started a process as part of Race to the Top, a process of building individualized career learning plans for students as part of a college and career readiness expectation for Race to the Top. Again, in January 2014, we had the pleasure of taking principals, district staff, and counselors, and some other support staff to hear a presentation through the Pathways Resource Center. And in that, we had the opportunity to learn about a few different tools to help us through this process. Between September and October 2014, we decided on the individualized career learning plan components. You have those handouts there at your in your packets. And starting around December, between September and December, we had various training sessions. Notably, in December, we held the most training sessions for our principals, our counselors, and our Paxton teachers in our schools, so that we could begin the launch of career cruising with our career learning plans. In December and January, all of our students received their logins, our staff received their logins, and so we launched in December of 2014. Tonight, I have two counselors here with me, Kayla Steele and Cookie Seeley. Kayla is the counselor at Roosevelt Magnet School, and Cookie Seeley is the counselor at Woodruff Career and Technical Center. And they are going to guide you through the process as students see career cruising and tell you a little bit more about how we use the tool in our district with our students and our teachers.
What grade level do you start at?
So the grade level we start at is sixth grade, 6th through 12th grade. And previously, high schools had used the tool. And so because of, again, the Race to the Top expectations, we were given more guidance in terms of stretching that out to include our 6th graders. We had some choice in the matter, and we thought we should start as early as possible, and the mandate was to start at least by middle school. And so we did go ahead and start in 6th grade so that our students would have as many opportunities, especially for our buildings that are already AVID schools, and then our buildings that have Paxton labs in the middle school. So we felt it would be very appropriate to start at 6th grade. At each one of the grade levels, there are different requirements for students, as you can see on the career individualized learning plan. And that plan is set up in several different components, and I'll go into some detail with those later. But at each one of the grade levels, the students have different requirements and expectations, all leading up to the year of graduation, but all of those activities are designed to prepare students for college, to prepare them for careers, and to give them various experiences and a way to document their experiences in one place. And so as students receive their logins, they will have that same login, that same learning profile will be in their career cruising tool until they graduate and beyond, actually. We actually have students who still access their career cruising accounts after graduation, and so that will be available to them. Okay? Kayla, if you could join me up here. And what I'll do is guide you. Also at your seats, you also have your own logins, and so that'll give you an opportunity to log in and see from the student's perspective. Ms. Steele.
I'm a little taller than her, so I'm going to move that up a little bit. Good evening. I apologize for my voice. I'm getting over, the cold that everybody else has had, so I'm just going to take that out of there. That'd be a little bit easier than hunching down like that. All right, so the initial introduction to ILPs, the individual learning plans and career cruising. When an ILP lesson is planned, the students will receive an access card that has their sign-in information on it. Each student receives a username and password from Career Cruising, as Ms. McKinnon said, and their username is PSD150- their lunch number. So it's a number that they are used to using, so at least their username will be something that they will be able to remember, but just in case it's something where they would need the extra help, they would have a card in front of them when they're sitting down to do an activity. For example, at Roosevelt, I've printed all of the cards on cardstock, and they are laminated, and I'm a little nerdy, so they're actually color-coded for 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade as well. They're organized by grade level and homeroom, because that's how I'll be doing the activities with them, is with a homeroom at a time rather than a whole grade level, so I can focus in on each student's needs, and they're stored in my office. Just an example of how the access cards would be used. The first activity that students do when they begin their ILP is called the Career Matchmaker. It's 39 questions in length. It serves as kind of a starting point to find careers that match their students' interests. Roosevelt, our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders will be completing the Career Matchmaker this Thursday as part of their College Colors activity. And we also plan to complete some of the further ILP activities at the College Colors Day in April. As Ms. McKinnon said, there are certain activities that are done at every year. Our goal is to have the Career Matchmaker at minimum done, but we would like to get beyond that, especially since we'll be able to complete that in February. So at minimum, we will have more activities in April, but with all that extra time that we have, maybe we'll throw in a couple more as well. So I'm going to walk you guys through the Career Matchmaker activity. Each board member has received a profile. It's in your packet. You are now an 8th grade student at Roosevelt. Congratulations. You're all Rough Riders officially now. I put you all in 8th grade. You will have in your packet a list of instructions. It has little pictures on it because I'm a visual person, so it helps me. So if you could take your iPads and go to www.careercruising.com, and this, as Ms. McKinnon has up here, will be the screen that'll come up. I don't want to rush anybody. When you do get to this screen, as you'll see, you'll enter the username that's on the card in your packet, and then you have a password on there. Okay. Once you log in, you will see my plan at the top. In your instructions, there's a wonderful picture of me on there. You can see, because the students can personalize Oh, see, you can see Miss McKinnon's up there. Students can personalize theirs with their school picture or a picture that they have up there. So underneath my plan, when it says, what do you want to do, you'll click on Explore My Interests. And then under Matchmaker and My Skills, you will click on Start Matchmaker. The way that these questions work, like I said, it starts with 39, and for each one you will respond with either dislike very much, dislike, does not matter, like, or like very much. We encourage students to just respond with what their initial gut feeling is. They do have an option to go back, but I'm not mentioning that to any of them, at least at this point, because the initial going through wants to be, what is your gut reaction to it? I also try to encourage them to avoid the does not matter as much as possible, because that will skew the results a little bit. It will make it a little bit more broad. The more that they get towards either the green or to the red, it hones in a little bit more on a specific career area. So as Ms. McKinnon is going through and clicking on those and giving you guys an opportunity to kind of see where it puts you. Once you get through the 39, it comes up with a list of careers that are generated from the interest that you entered on the Career Matchmaker. And I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to have fun with that and go through your answers. As you can see on the providing medical care and treatment, these 39 kind of try to touch base a little bit in each one of the major clusters so that they can get an idea if there's something a cluster that would need to be immediately eliminated, such as for myself when I've done it, medical automatically goes away because I can't handle any of that. I have a daughter, and she's the only one whose things like that I can handle. But it will get rid of medical, or if somebody is not interested in say sales, it'll take that out of there. That's what the initial 39 is for. Yes, and as you can see on the right, there is a more info that will give a little bit more of a description of what it is. So using mathematics to solve technical and scientific problems, if our students aren't sure exactly what that is, the little more info paragraph on the side there will give them further information in case they don't understand what it is that it's asking, gives them a little bit more clarification so they are able to answer truthfully. We do want them to answer with understanding what it's asking rather than just, I think this is what it is, and responding, because that, again, will skew the results that they get. And it gives them a guide. It tells them where their progress is, so they can see they're 62%. They're at question 26 of 39, so they can get an idea of where they are. If they do not answer all 39 questions in one sitting, it does not save the results. So the only way that they would be able to have the results saved from these, because they can take this multiple times, would be to complete at least the 39. There are questions beyond this they can take, but it won't save what they take or save their result unless they go through all of them.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Steele. Next we have Ms. Seeley from Woodruff, and she's going to walk you through what happens after students complete the first 39 questions of the Matchmaker.
Well, I went and took this test last night, and funny how my results turned out. I show as a career counselor, school counselor, rehab counselor, abuse crisis counselor. So I guess that was a pretty good match. As you are finding your results of Matchmaker, the next step is that you can then look at your career a little more in depth. So let's look at, we're going to actually go look at Find Other Careers. I had a sixth grader today that said she really wanted to do landscaping. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, and then landscaper. And so as you can see on the left, that's your run of ideas and information that Career Cruising will offer. It's giving the job description and how does this match you? And based on the answers to the matchmaker, you'll have check marks on the right-hand side where it says your response. And so the pieces on the left, as we go down the line, job description, we'll go ahead and take a look at that. And it talks about a couple of different people, Joanne and Tom, and the students can actually click on and listen to interviews that discuss what these folks do on a day-to-day basis. Okay, and then it also allows them to look and see what's it take as far as the working conditions go, and discusses what's going to be involved in their day-to-day living. Let's go down to earnings, because students really want to know what's going to make me a lot of money. So it talks about, this is particular in Texas, we also have one that's for Illinois, and it'll talk about the Illinois averages and the Illinois totals. Because our students are taking this in Illinois, it comes up automatically for that. So when the students see that they start out at about $12 an hour, but they can increase to $32, it gets them a little intrigued. And then if you'll go to the left-hand edge for education, I think this is kind of an interesting piece. It talks about what does it take to get into this career? And if you slide down just a little bit further, there's an idea about what should you be taking in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade if you want to get into that career, and kind of guides the student as to some pieces that would be helpful for them. I thought it was interesting that psychology was included in that for this student, and she says her mom is a landscape artist, and she says, well, they have to think about what they want. So. Okay, let's go on to, so you can take on the sample career path and so forth, and go on down the line and explore that a little bit more. It talks about the different levels of the career, and at what point in your career can you expect to be at those levels, and then what's your salary going to be. And $70,000 sounded pretty good to her. All right, so what I'd like to do is just go to the top again, and I'd like to go over to education for a minute. I'd like to go over to education at the very top in the center, and the students then can click on their major, right, yep, and you can type in landscape. And landscaping and groundskeeping. And it will be very specific. Now, remember, this was preset for Texas, so it's showing the Texas schools. For our students, it would show the Illinois schools that offer that education, and then you can click on one of those schools, and it gives you all the ins and outs about what's it take to get to that school, and what do you have to do in advance for it, and what's your ACT score need to be, and all those things. So the options are pretty extensive, and so at this point, I guess I can answer any questions that you might have.
How will you get the information for Illinois? Is that a manual thing, or is that
No.
something that's automatically?
No, it's on there too. Let's just go back.
Oh,
Pick
they
up
sign
the-
in to put their logins.
So we're gonna go back and find a career that we know.
See, you're under your demo, so why don't you go over your management learning my skills and just finish that off.
It'll comment up as Illinois when the students log in.
There we go.
So let's put take engineering.
Yeah, so that was a demo. Demo.
And it's based on,
No, it's a demo.
it's all based,
Picture, but it's still a demo.
Yes, and it's based on the career that Ms. Seeley selected. Most of the careers, in fact, all of them do have various states. It just so happened that for landscaping, the one that she selected, there was not as much information there. But if we take civil engineering, for example, we could go back through the same process and find information as it relates to Illinois as well. Let's go back to we want to do.
If you want to go to careers.
Okay. And then from here, let's pick.
You want to do, yeah, sure.
Okay. Before we do that, can I also highlight one thing that Ms. Seeley talked about, which was how the career matchmaker allows students to decide which career is best suited for them. Students go through the process of kind of going back and forth between their questions, and in some cases, if they come up with a particular career that is not suitable to them, they do have an opportunity to go in and change their answers if necessary, or they can go back and review their responses also. Some students, you know, when the careers come up, they'll see something that they're not interested in, and they'll wonder, well, how do I get that off? Well, it'll stay there, but then we can just help them to go back into the career matchmaker and choose some things that may be better suited for them. Which one?
If you go up to the top.
Okay, so here is an example of how it shows, again, an example of one for Illinois. And this career that was selected was aerospace engineer. And so you'll see here some of the Illinois information that students have access to. And again, they can select the various states here. Okay. And so the last part, I just want to bring to your attention a few documents that you have at your seat. One, as I said earlier, is the individualized learning plan. You have a copy in your packet. You also have a copy of a document that says for parents, what is career cruising? And both of these documents will guide us through our process as we implement individualized learning plans. It will guide us in terms of what students will be completing as part of their My Plan. And for students, they can find their plan. All of their plan information is right here under My Plan. And this will help the students to be able to monitor what is completed in their individualized career learning plan. And this, on the dashboard, as you can see, it keeps track of how many activities students have completed. This also, again, is accessible to our parents by following the information that I've given you a copy of. At Parent University, for the last 2 sessions, we've held sessions for parents on a rotation. And we've had a lot of very good interest. We've also had opportunities for students to practice right in front of their parents, and parents have been very pleased with what they've seen. But this will give parents information as to how they also can utilize career cruising to monitor what their students are doing. A lot of parents are very interested in, number one here, scholarships and financial aid. And so it gives parents information about how they can go about finding scholarships that match their children's skills as well as interests. And there are various tools here, FAFSA planning, for example, that I feel parents will find to be very useful. And then also, as far as, again, the rest of the actual individualized learning plan, if you look at the individualized learning plan in your packet, you'll see that these sections line up with those activities. So, for example, as our students participate in various work experiences, for example, they will have the opportunity to go here at work experience and upload their work experience by following these prompts. And parents can assist children in uploading those. Also, as you can see, students have the opportunity of uploading extracurricular activities. Students have the opportunity of working in schools with their counselors and teachers and uploading career and life goals. Career planning activities is one that we feel that our students will definitely have quite a bit of experience with. Here, students will have the opportunity to upload activities as it relates to attending a career fair, attending a college fair, completing their testing, going to interviews, job shadowing experiences. All of these things will be kept and housed in their plan for them to be able to go back to and refer to. So that completes our presentation on career individualized learning plans. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, just real quick, if after they go through that 39-question assessment, and the number of careers that come up are like, I mean, I went through this, and I've got 40. So
Okay.
how do you help someone narrow down?
Sure.
In terms of, because at the end of the day, you're trying to help someone figure out really where they want to apply themselves, so.
Absolutely. Ms. Steele?
That's an excellent question. Yes, after the first 39 questions and you get your initial 40 results, I'm going to have, over here, it has on the side you improve my results, so you can click on answer more questions. There's actually a total of 116 that you'll eventually end up taking. So this, once you click on that, it adds 44 more, which are just a little bit more specific than the original 39, which will narrow that down a little bit more. In practice, when I've taken it myself, it has changed from the first time going through, and it has narrowed it down a little bit more. But that's the idea behind answering these next group of questions here. Also, over on the side, if you scroll down a little bit more, it's my skills is another one. That is kind of a learning styles activity. It kind of gives them a little bit more idea of their actual skills as opposed to their interests, because those are two very different things. I love art and I can't draw. So just because that's an interest that I have doesn't mean that I have the skills in order to have that be a successful career for myself. So this is a way for them to see how do my actual skills match up with my interest as well.
As I understand it, the Pathways to Prosperity project is working on the next connection of this, which is called Inspire. Could you speak to that briefly as to what that does? I know a little bit about it, but I think it would be helpful to understand, because I think it's really potentially very powerful and very, very helpful.
So my understanding, this is information where the employers put in information that's available, and the students can go in and see which employers have job shadowing experiences, apprenticeships available, and students are able to match that up based on the career information that they've put into career cruising to align that with Aspire.
Right. I guess the point of that is that eventually there should be a database of local internships and other opportunities. Job shadowing in the community, so that once you work through career cruising, it gives you a chance to find out what those opportunities are as a student.
Yes,
And
that is correct.
And I think that is enormously powerful in terms of an attraction to students to be able to say, here's things right here in the community that I could do, either as an employment or just an exposure opportunity, because so many times kids just don't know what it really takes to do a job and what it's like. And in some cases, you may find out once you get into that environment, it's wonderful, and you may also say, I'm just not there. It's not right for me. But I think there's a grant that's been developed or being pursued to fund that. For Aspire. So that would be a linkage with career cruising to the next level, which is the actual implementation of this for employment and exposure opportunities, so.
And this is a program that's free for our district students.
Right.
So-
The other question I would ask is, how widely used is this in other schools in the area? Are we one of the few, or are there many others that use it, or?
There are several of the workshops that we attended through Perfect, which is a regional consortium. There were representatives from other districts. I'm not as familiar with how extensive their implementation plan is at this point, but I do know that there are some areas in the Tazewell County, some school districts in the Tazewell County area, as well as in the Peoria area, who are considering the same process that we have. It's my understanding that our process is a little further along because we actually have our individualized learning plans mapped out. We have our logins ready for students, and many of them are already accessing. And so it's my understanding we're a little further along in terms of our implementation plan, but I'm not as familiar with the specifics of those districts.
Okay, and just the last question is, will there be some sort of tally or metrics as to the percentage of students that could use it, that are using it? That would be really interesting to know over time.
Sure. There is a regional reporting system that district-level administrators have access to, and also Mr. Chris Kendall through the Perfect Consortium. So we do have an opportunity to monitor the implementation throughout our district. And since we just launched in December, and we know that many of our students have started their career matchmaker assessments in January and in February, we expect for the ILP plan that we shared with you to take us about a year to complete and get it in process. We know that before the school year ends, we expect for all of our students to be able to, especially at the middle school, to complete their matchmaker assessments. And so, you know, given that, we will be monitoring our expectations according to the individualized learning plan, and then giving schools the support that they need if necessary to move along their implementation. But our principals are working with their leadership teams and their counselors in their schools in order to implement their plans in their buildings. The regional reporting system allows us to monitor how many students in our district have completed the first 39 questions. It also allows us to monitor how I showed you the toolbar here that shows the completion. It also will allow us to see exactly where all of our students are. And it'll actually group this many students are 50% along, this many students are 80% along, and so forth. So that will be very good information for us at the district level to use to monitor and give feedback to principals.
Great, thank you.
I know you said that it was free to the students in our district. What kind of a cost was there to the district for this program? Did we have a one-time cost, or how does that work?
Sure. We did not have a cost per se. Perfect, Mr. Chris Kendall through Perfect. I worked with him from January through October to get all of our information in and determine how many logins that we needed to add on for middle school. But it's my understanding through those funds and working with Mr. Chris Kendall, the opportunity was able to be expanded to our middle schools. And as I said, in current use to our high school students. So in terms of payments to utilize career cruising, that did not have to happen. It just became a part of the existing career cruising that we have.
Thank you.
That comes through the Regional Office of Education, I believe, in Peoria County. I think that's what Perfect is funded by.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, President Wolfmeyer and Reverend Butler and board members and Dr. Lathan. I want to thank you for this opportunity. I'm Maureen Langhoff. I'm the Director of Special Education. We have several areas we want to review for you tonight and give you updates on, and we have so many staff members here to support what we're doing, and I just want to take a moment to thank them. The first area we're going to update you on is an opportunity for our students who have low incidence disabilities. It's called the MOVE curriculum, which is movement opportunities via education. So it's a program that Stephanie Zutter, one of our physical therapists for the district, will give you an update on, and then Daniel Walker is one of our district occupational therapists. We also have coordinator Lisa Carlberg here, who oversees low incidence disabilities. Erin Flory is an occupational therapy assistant. Courtney Kilgore is also an occupational therapy assistant. Liz Plaskin and Natalie James are from TJ. Thank you for being here. And Ashley Davidson is also a CODA. So thank you for being here. The second piece is a neuropsychology training update. A quick update from Paula Carpenter, school psychologist, regarding some training that we did for her this year.
Would
Okay?
you just explain in detail what low incidence handicaps are?
Yes.
Sure. So low incidence includes, in our district, we have low vision, kids with vision impairment, physical impairment, and hearing impairment. And so we also have all ranges from severe and profound involvement to minimal
And
involvement.
low incidence refers to the numbers of students in those categories, correct? They are not huge numbers, so that's why they're called low
Correct.
incidence
Says, like
handicaps.
higher incidence disabilities would be students that have speech and language services or who are identified as other health impairment or a learning disability.
Thank you.
Start with the video.
Hands in the right place. Hands in the right place. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you for letting us come present today about our MOVE program that we do with certain students in our district. In the Developmental Center here in District 150, we have the privilege of educating a really unique population of children, the severely and profoundly involved children of the Peoria area. We have a real talented and dedicated staff that sees potential in every student that they work with, and every day they look to see what's the next step that they can have these children make. In District 150, achievement is a major focus for all children, but achievement doesn't always look the same. We were given the opportunity, thanks to Dr. Lathan and Maureen, this summer to attend a training on the MOVE program. And we've been able to implement this philosophy within the curriculum that we already had going on within these populations. In one semester, and this is with a learning curve, everybody's new to it, we have seen some major changes in the functional capacity of kids and their independence. So as Maureen already said, the MOVE program stands for Movement Opportunities via Education. And it's a program that's based on a philosophy and a set of principles. It's an activity-based program that uses a top-down approach, focusing on sitting, standing, walking, and transitioning. Each program is individualized and designed focus what the child can do, and then to grow from there. So as teachers assess skills or therapists assess skills, we're focusing on things like such as not yet rather than they can't or no. The principles of MOVE are based on the students that we're teaching and how they learn. So we have to keep in mind the population that we're working with and what we're trying to teach. So if a child learns slowly, then we need to make sure we're teaching what's important. Another philosophy is you have to work with children in short sessions throughout the day to provide repetition and to maintain their focus. If we have students that forget things quickly, we need to make sure we provide a lot of repetitions and frequency of opportunities for them to practice. The teacher that developed the MOVE program identified that children at this level need 2,000 trials to learn a task and to master it. So if a child is only given that opportunity one time a day in the 180 days of our school year, it would take 10 years for kids to master a lot of skills. So that's where the repetitions come into play. Kids need to generalize their skills so that they master those skills across all areas and with all settings and all people, so in the community and at home. So we need to make sure that we're teaching those skills, not just at school, but out in the community with different people in different settings so that they can do those things all the time. We also need to always consider safety of the students, but we also need to move out of our comfort level, which as for a physical therapist, we're always like, add another strap, make sure they're safe. But we need to not do that all the time so we can challenge the kids so that they can progress. And that's been a big challenge for all of us, is looking at things differently. Also, always, of course, we want to set high expectations because children, no matter what their ability levels, are always going to strive for whatever expectation you set for them. The MOVE program uses an ecological approach to teaching rather than a developmental approach. So you're teaching skills through activities rather than teaching isolated skills. Movement is always provided with a purpose, so it makes sense to the student and it motivates them to participate in that. So an example, you can see tons of examples on the pictures and they all make me smile all the time. But we also had a support station, or I'm sorry, it's called a standing station, purchased for our two of our programs, one at Thomas Jefferson and one Rolling Acres. And it's a piece of equipment that allows children to stand during diaper changes. So hygiene and toileting take up a lot of the time throughout the day. So this allows an opportunity for the students to transfer from sitting to standing and then be in a standing position another time of the day. Again, increasing that repetition. We have to have our students be active learners, which in these pictures you see, we don't want them to just be included, we want them to be involved, whatever it is they're doing. And we're always teaching skills and activities so that we can have the most independence possible. At the beginning, we showed you a couple videos of a couple kids, and these are students that had minimal independent functioning. And this year, these kids have been given increased opportunities to sit, stand, transition, and walk throughout the school day as they're learning, and we have seen some amazing changes. The male student is now able to walk a few steps without any support, and he walked throughout the school building with just a walker. The female student went from needing 4 adults holding every part of her to crawl across the floor to where now she'll walk with a walker with one finger just kind of helping out, and she can walk with one hand held. Not only do you see increased, I'm going too slow, not only do you see increased improvement in function, but we see improvement in behaviors. So our male student in 2012, 2013 had a lot of behaviors. He hit students, he hit himself, he kicked during diapering, he would hit everything off his tabletops, he always needed hand over hand to participate in the activities. He would take his shoes off, his braces off. The only way he got around was by scooting on his bottom or rolling, or an adult pushing him, or he was fully supported in an activity chair. He really didn't show much progress at all with his IEP goals because he wasn't cooperating, and a behavioral intervention plan had to be formed for him because of his behaviors. In 2013, he received a wheelchair which allowed him to independently propel himself, which was a really cool moment, and he picked it up right away and realized, hey, I can go wherever I want in this thing. So then in this school year, 2014-2015, Natalie, our teacher over here, implemented the MOVE program and gave him lots of opportunities to sit, stand, and transition throughout the school day. He now follows commands. He cooperates with diapering. He makes choices with a switch. He participates in classroom activities. He has about 15 verbal words, but probably more since I wrote this down. He uses some signs. He understands the classroom routines. He sits in a regular classroom chair for his activities and for meals instead of all strapped into another chair. And negative behaviors only are really seen if there's a change in the schedule, if he's not wanted, if his walking is restricted, can't go where he wants, and then in the afternoons, only about 3 times a week, where before there was lots of tantruming and whining. So, you know, in District 150, we have a mission to ensure that each student receives his or her full academic and personal potential and is a well-balanced citizen. The philosophy and principles of the MOVE program really help meet this goal with this population of students. So we're going to show the videos one more time, and this time watch them as a progression of the achievement that these students are having rather than just how cute they are. So this is how Paul would get around, scooting. Oh, I said his name. This is how our student would get along, scooting or rolling. Sorry. What he's walking with here is called a gait trainer. It provides him a lot of support, and he's in this thing all day long, but he's also walking now with just a standard, like a walker that you'd see somebody with a total knee, or, you know, a normal walker, that this right here. I forgot it was here. So in May of 2014, May of 2014, he could stand at this walker for 2 seconds, and then he would need help.
Yay, Polly! Polly, do you want to swing? Can you say swing?
And that's the sign for swing. So a lot of verbal communication with independence and mobility. And so this is really new stuff here. Like I said, Natalie, his teacher that's in the video, has really done a great job. And he is now even taking 4 or 5 steps without anybody holding on.
Good job.
So this little girl was very stubborn and would not like to do things. So we have a piece of equipment plus 3 or 4 adults, I think, doing this with her. Getting her to move, getting her to be in the correct positions. And now she's able to walk in this gait trainer. And if you notice, she starts from a stop. That's like a big deal. She can make it go on her own. And she's also walking with another walker that gives her less support now also. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I remember, I believe it was the last meeting where we announced the donation of gait trainers for the, so to see that now next, it's really exciting.
That's been awesome. We've gotten a lot of equipment for the kids, and you can do these things without equipment, but then risk of injury increases for everyone, and the independence can be so much more. So that's been a huge support. Like that standing station has just been a really neat addition. So the support has been tremendous for this population of students. So we appreciate that.
Roughly how many students are you guys working with daily?
You know a number?
Close to 100.
Oh.
16 at TJ.
I would think there's close, like throughout the whole district, it's probably close to 100 kids at all different levels of physical disabilities. We have some students who are in a regular ed classroom and still have physical needs, but the severe and profound is a smaller population.
Okay, thank you.
It takes an incredible amount of patience and kindness to do this, and this is something that is not easy. And I think you, as a staff and organization, deserve a lot of recognition and credit for taking on what I think is an enormously challenging and also rewarding task. And I think also that there are many people in the community that have absolutely no idea that this type of service and education is provided by District 150. And those who are so quick to criticize this district for doing things have no clue sometimes as to what we are doing, we're required to do, or expected to do, or provide services to those who really, really need help. And I think you need to keep that in mind, because if you look at this and say, you know, there for the grace of God, maybe go me or my child, and you think what this provides to them, I think you need to be careful of what you say in criticism of the work that's done in this school district.
I can't imagine what the response from parents must be to see this kind of progress with their children. It's just amazing.
Well, we recently got iPads in the last 3 or so years, so we take a lot more videos. But we wish we had them from like 5 years ago, because there's a lot more. But it goes across all spectrum. We showed this little kids because, you know, they're always heartwarming. But our older kids, we've had some huge success with, and families that are just ecstatic come back and tell teachers or the therapists of things that they've never done at home before that they're doing. A big part of this, which I didn't talk about, and I'm taking way too much time because I could talk about it forever because it's exciting, is you do a lot of parent involvement. Mm-hmm. So your goals at school are educationally focused, but you're getting the skills that are needed for home too. And so that parent piece is a big part of it.
And I know it used to be, I don't know if it still is. Do we still, in some of these programs, still have children from outside of our district? It's so specialized that we offer it to some other school districts that would not be able to provide this on their own because of the expense.
Correct.
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
I just have a quick question. So that the progress continues, are many of the parents able to have some of the same kinds of equipments, or are there opportunities?
A lot of the yes, a lot of the parents have standers at home, gait trainers. The male student that we showed at home, we've let them borrow a walker. They have one of the gait trainers, but because he got progressed to the walker, they actually borrowed one from us that we had extra. So you try to have both, you know, continuity, so that, and the same cueing and that sort of thing's happening, so that it's happening at home and at school. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Paula Carpenter. I'm a school psychologist here at District 150. And last school year, from September until July, another school psychologist and I had an opportunity to participate in a postgraduate school neuropsych certification program. And this program consisted of 180 hours of coursework and clinical supervision. We had 500 practical field experience hours, and then at the end of that coursework, we had to take a 200-item exam, and then we had to successfully orally defend a case study in front of a panel of other school neuropsychologists. So what is a school neuropsychological evaluation? And how does it differ from what we do currently when we're evaluating students? Well, typically when we evaluate students for special education services and eligibility, I might do a cognitive assessment, an achievement assessment, and then look at the RTI data that we have gathered over the course of intervention support. Well, a school neuropsychological evaluation focuses on more of the biological bases of human behavior. So it can drill down and determine what those biological bases of learning disabilities and behavioral disorders are. So we know, based on research, where various types of learning and cognitive functioning occurs in the brain. And the evaluation tools that we use, and which we were trained on over this 10-month program, are designed to assess those areas and determine where the breakdown is. So when we know where that breakdown is, we can translate what is known about brain behavior research to more appropriate curriculum for the student. So who is appropriate for a school neuropsychological evaluation? Because it's not appropriate for everyone. It's not necessary for everyone. But for those students who are not responding to multiple intervention strategies, so we might have students who are receiving special education services, but we're not seeing the progress we would expect on their IEP goals and objectives, they would be a good candidate for a neuropsychological evaluation. A child with a known or suspected neurological disorder, a child with a history of a neurodevelopmental risk factor, so maybe a child who was exposed in the womb to alcohol or drugs, a child returning to school after a head injury or a neurological insult, or a child who has had a dramatic drop in achievement that just can't be explained by any other factors. And some of the benefits of having a school neuropsychologist on staff, neuropsychological evaluations can cost a parent or the district upwards of $5,000 when obtained privately. The wait time often to see a pediatric clinical neuropsychologist is oftentimes a year or more. I've had parents tell me that it's going to be 16 months before I can get in. And school neuropsychologists have the training to recommend curricular changes and environmental changes. Already I've been using what we have learned in this program to recommend changes to curriculum for some of our special education students, and talking with some parents and teachers, they feel like it not only has it benefited the student that it was recommended for, but the entire classroom as well. So that, in a nutshell, has been the training that we had received, and now this is our first year of really getting to implement it and do some of the evaluations and seeing some of the benefits in the changes that we can make to not only the learning, but also to the environment. So it's also appropriate for students with behavioral disorders, so we can look at how we can change the environment for those students as well. Any questions?
How many of these evaluations would you expect to be doing on an annual basis?
Yeah, 3 to 5 typically.
It really depends on the IEP teams and what the recommendation is in terms of what other information that we don't have, we need to figure out. The district has paid for a few of these in the past several years, but now that two of our current psychologists have gone through this training, we no longer have to outsource for that cost. Okay?
Thank you.
Ms. Costick?
And the children are they referred through a teacher?
Through the IEP team?
The IEP, okay.
So that individualized education program team would make the recommendation, or sometimes there's a social service agency request or a parent request, and then we respond to those as appropriate as well.
Is there an age that we're starting at, or is it all students?
All students.
In this day and age when we're seeing a lot of ADHD, which results in a great deal of misbehaving, sometimes in the classrooms, when it's extensive and there is no referral, what can we do to have these children come into the program? If they currently do not have an IEP, and there is not a referral, but these are children that have been diagnosed with ADHD and are continually acting out in the classroom, behavioral problems as well as learning disabilities.
And I think that we're probably going to talk a little bit about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're just getting ahead of us. That will be addressed, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, and go ahead, Ms. Ross.
Not on. Ask a quick question on the process of testing. How long does it take? What's the process? Is it a computerized testing, or is it what is the process, and how long does it take to make your diagnosis?
It really depends on the referral question. So if we have a student who has a lot of memory concerns, well, if we already know that, then it's more of a focused evaluation. If it is something like we just really don't know what's going on, it's going to be more extensive, so we'll be looking at different areas. Typically, it can take at least 4 hours of work with the student, and then depending on the age of the student, it might take several days, especially if we have a little one who's only going to work for 20 to 30 minutes at a time. So it really, really depends on the student and what the referral question is.
So is it a question and answer?
No, it would be, we do have some computer-based programs looking at attention. So looking at focused attention, sustained attention, getting at some of those executive functioning skills. We would also look at me asking questions, so more of a verbal, how are they understanding what they hear? And then also more hands-on, so if I give you stimulus to make a model from what they see, how do they learn visually? Also, paper pencil tasks. It's really looking at all modalities of learning.
Okay. I was just wondering, is there a standard that you use? Like, for instance, I'll use the DSM-4, whatever. You use some type of standard to make your...
Well, we would still be held within the IDEA special education criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to make sure that you are aware that our psychologists and social work teams work so hard, and I just want to publicly thank them for all of their work they do for special services. So thank you. Okay. So next, 2 of 3, we're making progress. 2 of 3, we have our team members here that are going to give you an overview. If you recall, in July, when it was very warm, we did an update for you on the Center for Disease Control project. We don't call it a grant because we haven't gotten a lot of money. So it is a project we're working on for sexual health curriculum. If my team members could come on down who are speaking with me tonight. I want to make sure we introduce everyone. We're giving you an update. So we have 3 prongs that we're going to talk to. If you recall from July, I'll remind you if you don't remember. There are 3 pieces of this grant. The first one is our curriculum pieces. Second is our health services for students. And then the third is our safe and supportive environments for students. So we're going to speak to all 3 of those tonight. We also have some really awesome students from our Youth Advisory Council here to represent. So join us tonight, if you don't mind. We have Colton and Davion and Millie. Yes. And we have Jade, and there's Jade, and we have from Manual, Jade's Ty and Alex. Okay. So Marcus and Louisa have also been working with the YAC, we call it the YAC, the Youth Advisory Council, and they're going to give you just some background on where we've been so far in terms of touching bases on the progress we've made since the beginning of the school year. But first, we're going to do an overview of the curriculum and health services. So if you could come on down. Mariola is here from In-School Health at Manual. Welcome back, Mariola. And Monica Kabat from the Health Department. Hendrickson, sorry. Mariola Kabat and Monica Hendrickson, excuse me, both of you. And Holly Bill is here representing the Holt Center. If you recall, these ladies sat with me in July, so I welcome them back, and we want to give you an update on progress.
So again, this is actually an updated review of the teen birth rates and sexually transmitted infections or STIs in our community. So the first slide actually is a comparison of the first data I showed you, which was finalized 2012 data, and comparing it to our most recent finalized data, which is 2013. And again, this looks at births per 1,000 females ages 15 to 19 years old. It first looks at the United States and Illinois, as well as Peoria County as a whole. And now on the national stage, we have seen a decrease. However, when we look at specific zip codes, such as 61603, 04, and 05, which make up our largest portion of District 150, we see that we are overwhelmingly higher than the national and state values, as well as increasing in some of our zip codes. And then the remaining parts of our county are actually much lower than that of the national values. So again, this is looking at that school of 2,000 kids that are half boys, half girls, and realizing that in a year about in our combined school district of 61603, 04, and 05 zip codes, 4 out of 100 of those students will be pregnant in a year. Just to give you another understanding of it, United States as a nation, we already have one of the worst teen birth rates compared to other westernized nations. Our county is comparable to Rwanda, Azerbaijan, and Morocco, and the 3 combined zip codes are close to South Sudan, Ethiopia, Panama, and Bangladesh in the values of teen birth rates. Any questions about that? Okay. The next one is our comparisons of STIs or sexually transmitted infections for 2003. Again, this is finalized data. And again, we're seeing the same trends as well. Our county level data for chlamydia, which is shown in white, is about 2 times that of the national value. And for gonorrhea, we're almost 3 times that of the national value. And then when we look at our zip code specific, we range anywhere from 3 times up to almost 8 times that of the national values, depending on which zip code specific we're looking at. And again, we actually look at zip codes not to stigmatize one zip code over other, but because much like you guys, we work in a group of very limited resources, and as such, where can we focus the most of our energy in addressing this health concern? And so with that, it really is these 3 zip codes.
So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to address the exemplary sexual health education, access to health services, and then the safe and supportive environment for students. Those are the 3 prongs of the project. So the first piece, I'm going to have Holly Bill from the Holt Center give you an update on the curriculum.
Hi, I'm Holly Bill from the Holt Center for Healthy Living. I am the lead health educator, and I am coordinating the efforts for the curriculum. So with ESHE, it helps steer where we're going for the ESHE committee. So ESHE provides adolescents the essential knowledge and critical skills that are needed to avoid HIV, STDs, and teen pregnancy. And so in steering, it would be that the bullet points up here: evidence-informed approach to sexual health education. It helps make sure that the use of grade-specific interventions exist. Guide are medically accurate and consistent with scientific evidence, that it's tailored to students' needs, and we use effective classroom instructional methods. Next slide. So just an update on where we're at. So the curriculum subcommittee began meeting in September 2014. It consisted of community partners such as Holt and other partners that you were given at the previous meeting, as well as district staff. So the purpose at first was to audit what's currently being done in the school district. These audits were conducted by the school personnel as well as community partners. So we wanted to see what was currently happening in the schools, what are potential curriculums that we could use, establish the plans to start them in the schools, and then what are the appropriate topics. What we came up with during that, and at every step of this process, the district staff was involved, including the counselors, administration, even the students who we have with us, were helping in this. And so the recommendations are below. that current practices are provided, but they're not consistent throughout the district. So there are things being taught in the district, but it's not the same exact at every single school, and not everything that's being taught is evidence-based. Any curriculum that needs to be aligned with essential standards, so we're making sure that that is happening. And it cannot be burdensome to already stretched school systems. So we want to make sure that we're working with the teachers and not putting something else on their plates that they feel, is just another burden. We want to make sure that we're working directly with them. So we chose a curriculum. The basis of the curriculum is the FLASH curriculum, so family life and sexual health education, for many, many reasons. A couple of them are up here. First of all, it's free, which is always really nice. It is approved by the Illinois State Board of Education, and it is theory-based. It does have grades 5 through 12. And we thought that it was important that it embraced abstinence-based and contraceptive methods, as well as information related to teen pregnancy, HIV, and STDs, as well as many, many other topics. It does rest on a foundation of positive and healthy sexuality across the lifespan, and it has a wide spectrum of beliefs on sensitive issues. It also includes family involvement, which we are going to use through homework assignments and throughout the district with the students. And we thought it was really important that it also focuses on public schools and diverse communities. So we thought that was very fitting for the district. Okay, next slide. So some of the topics that we thought we would address so far are that the community partners, they will be involved, and they will be used to deliver some of the programming so that we have a clear and consistent message to all students across the district, because that's something that's not happening currently. That we will involve the teachers and the parents through supplementation, as I said before, through homework assignments, parent universities, things like that. There will be a procedure manual that is put together that's in process right now. It will help provide support to anyone who needs it, specifically the staff for Peoria District 150, to make sure that we are all on the same page, that it provides a safe environment, they know how to answer tough questions, things like that. Trainings will be provided to the community partners who are involved and Peoria District 150 staff members who are involved. Pre and post testing will be used to gauge the knowledge of what's being provided to the students, and intended behaviors will be tested as well. Student and teacher feedback will be collected throughout the school year. This will be done through the DASH committee. Evaluations will also be conducted so that we can make sure that we are staying true to the curriculum, that we're teaching what's supposed to be taught, and so that we know that each of the community members who are presenting will be consistent throughout. Questions and concerns at this point can be addressed to the DASH committee, but we will be putting out a lot of more information so that the public is aware of it, and the parents can get answers from where they need to get answers from, so we will be really accessible to them. We'll also be at every parent opportunity that we can possibly be at. So parent nights, back to school nights, parent universities. We will be putting out a schedule as soon as we start to get that lined up. So.
Mariola is going to address the sexual health services.
Good evening. I'm Mariola Cabot, and I'm the nurse practitioner at Manual Academy. I work for Unity Point Methodist. So as you can see in this slide, collaborations with community partners is such a key part of this entire project. And as an existing community partner, Unity Point Health can actually help and to deliver some of the key sexual health services that are promoted by this project. Currently, Right there you see establishing referral systems. So the clinics that we have, especially for sexual health, we do refer to a lot of community organizations already, such as the local OB and gynae providers. We use the Women's Pregnancy Center, the local health department, Planned Parenthood. There's a lot of partners that we currently utilize. Also, as part of the community partner issue, we utilize other services to help improve the services we provide in the clinics, and these include the HIV clinic. They come out to Manual Academy at least once a year and help us with the annual Get Yourself Tested program. And if anybody isn't sure what that is, I'd be happy to answer that later for you. The Youth Advisory Council, of which the members are here, I've actually met with them to ask for feedback as to how can we improve the services that we currently provide at the clinic. We also meet with principals to ask them for feedback about services. So there's some of the things we currently do. Okay. And as I've already mentioned at the last board meeting, we currently have 3 clinics that are run through Unity Point, and these are located at Manual, Traywin, and Harrison. And each of them are staffed by an advanced practice nurse, such as myself. And some of the things that we have already been providing all along are some of the confidential services that you see at the very bottom of that list, which includes pregnancy testing, some very basic initial prenatal care and referrals, and STI testing and treatment. As per the new contract that is now out, these 3 clinics can now also prescribe contraception. As you may know, the state of Illinois currently allows persons who are at least 12 years of age to consent to their own confidential services, which includes contraception. In 2014, the American Academy of Pediatrics in September of 2014 came out with a statement that said, regardless of which method of contraception is chosen, pediatricians should stress that all methods of hormonal birth control are safer than pregnancy, especially within this age group of young persons. A month later, they came out and actually stated adolescent contraception should be provided as a confidential service, and that limitations on confidentiality and consent are linked to lower use of contraceptives and higher adolescent pregnancy rates. In the in-school health clinics, students are advised, encouraged definitely to speak to their parents and receive their input. However, that is not always possible. We also do talk about abstinence. However, as we know from a lot of data, even adolescents who have committed to being abstinent, many of those do not remain so throughout their adolescent years. We also encourage the students to go back and talk to their primary care providers on this topic as well as contraception. However, what we have found, though, is as students start to form strong relationships with the in-school health staff, this opens doors and more of them come to us seeking these type of services, and that they would not necessarily go anywhere else to seek that because of the relationships that we formed.
So next, we're going to address the safe and supportive environments. Louisa is here from Planned Parenthood, and Marcus represents Illinois Safe Schools. The students we have that are going to speak tonight are Alex, Ty, and Jade.
Hello, Board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. In regards to our safe and supportive environments, we're looking at this as a community-wide approach, especially with all the topics that we've already approached. We want to make sure that our staff is feeling safe and supportive in the conversations that they may end up having with students in regards to sexual health. And we want to make sure that our students also feel that their environment is safe and supportive, that they can actually ask those questions. We want to, under this portion of the project, we want to make sure that we're addressing bullying and sexual harassment in a restorative manner. Prohibiting it sometimes is not the best way to go. We want to make sure that we're addressing it in a way that is restoring the harm that is being caused. We also want to increase the parental involvement, making sure that that parents are kind of on the same page as we are, and know that they have a safe and supported space within the school as well, and providing the students with those services in a safe location. We have started working on this, starting with our youth, working with the Youth Advisory Council, the Illinois Safe Schools Alliance. We're working with the YAC as well as Planned Parenthood, and Luisa is going to introduce the YAC.
Good evening. Like I said, my name is Luisa Gomez. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for Planned Parenthood. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Youth Advisory Council. This group of students have actually created their own mission statement, so I'm not going to go too far into that. I'm going to allow them to speak on that. But as of right now, we've engaged 25 students to date. We have students from all 4 of the area high schools. And we have met 5 times since November, and we were first meeting once a month. And we found that because of the pace of the program being implemented and the desire for student involvement and their passion that's building, we moved it to a bi-weekly basis. And we also used to just meet at one central location, and one of the things we've adapted now is we're moving around to the different high schools. And so that also gives that high school who's hosting to, open their doors for other students to come in, and creating that committee, that council, that family. One of the things that we like to talk about is we treat YAC like family. And we're building a group of young advocates that are going to go out and speak to their peers and be able to have those conversations, because the best form of information is received well from peer educators. And what YAC is striving to do is to create peer educators. So all the information that that is being taught in schools, how to talk about what community resources are out there, what are the common STIs and things of that nature, our peer educators will have that same knowledge, and they'll be able to share that with their peers. They will be able to address the bullying that is going on and be able to speak to their peers and be leaders in their school communities and in the community as a whole. And as an advisor, I just want to say it has been a pleasure working with these young people. I tell them all the time, I say I'm old school. I learn something new from them all the time. So first on the agenda to speak is going to be Alex. All right.
Good evening, Superintendent Lathan, President Wolfmeyer, Vice President Reverend Butler, and other board members. Thank you for allowing us to speak. My name is Alex Sierra. I am a sophomore and I currently attend Manual Academy. The Youth Advisory Council's mission statement is, as leaders, we strive to challenge others and provide a voice for the voiceless by advocating for change. Our vision statement is, youth advocates are empowered to educate their peers, families, and communities about human sexuality and social justice. Youth advocates inspire long-term change on issues that affect them so that they can become leaders and take action.
Hello, my name is Ty Powell. I'm a sophomore currently attending Manual Academy, and I will be talking about why YAC is important. Our student-led group shows that peers reach out and receive things better when and are more comfortable talking about sexuality, substance abuse, and things of that nature when they're talking to people of their age group, and that having student voices brings recognition to the importance of student involvement. And our upcoming activities are April 22nd, the Youth Advocate Day at the Capitol, and the YAC partnering with Manual Academy for GYT activities.
I'm a little nervous. Hi, I'm Jay Sashington. I'm a sophomore at Manual Academy. And the 3 prongs we go by of the Youth Advisory Council are exemplary sexual health education, meaning in our school health clinics. Second, access to key sexual health services. That means like informing my community and my fellow peers of teen births and STI rates. And lastly, a safe and supportive environment for students and other staff members. Any questions?
Thank you very much. The last portion that we have here on our safe and supportive environments, as we've mentioned, having a youth advisory council is going to be very important to creating that safe space. Students know what they need to have a safe space, and having their voice be involved in the process is very helpful. It has been seen in other schools around the country that having a youth advisory council really increases the academics even of the students that are in the school, because they feel like they're a part of the school. As far as we talked about bullying just a bit ago, in the state of Illinois, the three top, yes?
I have excuse me. I have a question. For the students that are in the Youth Advisory Council, how are your peers going to identify who you are?
Hello again. The way that we have talked about being noticed is how we present it as the peers, as peer mentors, and how we take charge of it and letting in like advertisement, as well as this event right here. While as we're speaking, we're trying to let kids know right now, and parents, teachers, adult staff, and administration, that we are being trained to address certain concerns that our generation face and upcoming generations will face. And what we are trying to do as peer mentors is end that challenge, not end it, but decrease the ratings.
I understand that. However, if I am a student at Manual Academy, and if there is nothing that tells me who I can go to on the Youth Advisory Council, how am I going to know who to go to?
Actually, how that will come about is one of our current events that they mentioned is partnering with Manuel at the GYT events that they're going to have.
And the GYT is what?
Is Get Yourself Tested. It's a national incentive that's across the United States, across the country. In the month of April, it's high schools, colleges, Planned Parenthood, a lot of community partners we involve in Get Yourself Tested. What that means and what that stands for is know your status. So we encourage individuals to go out and to get yourself tested. It's knowing your status, knowing where you stand. So a specific incident, a specific event where they will be identified will be at this GYT. They will be at the tables, or however they're going to work that situation out, and they will introduce themselves as peer educators of the Youth Advisory Council. So that is how they will be getting out, and we will also be at parent universities and things of that nature. So it'll be more hands-on for their peers to identify them through school involvement and school activities. So setting up tables at lunchtime, coming in, saying, hey, we're YAC, this is what we do. And we also are going to, we have a group of students right now, but one of the processes we're going through is how do we reach other students who might be interested in joining the Youth Advisory Council. And that's another initiative that we're working on as well. We have created an application, a code of conduct. We've put all these things in place, whereas it's tabling events, getting out there at community events, school-based events, having these students being the face of YAC, and that's how they'll be able to identify them in their school.
We've also worked closely with the principals, so the principals of Manual, Treewin, and Harrison. I will be communicating very frequently with them so that we're all on the same page about what's happening here. So these students will have the opportunity to work with their administrators on, how can we educate our students? How can we put data in front of them to help them become aware of what's happening? So all of that process, everyone's going to be working together on it. We meet quarterly regarding the in-school health clinics with the administrators, and this topic is absolutely part of that, that dialogue.
So I just have a quick question about, are the students all from Manual, or do they
No.
encompass all of?
No.
You have-
We have students from all four of the high
Okay,
schools.
good.
We will be looking into, as we grow as a YAC, moving also into the middle school, having middle school YAC members.
So, oh, go ahead.
And just to get to the last part of this specific slide, we had mentioned about bullying. And in our state, the top 3 reasons in a recent student survey for bullying are teen pregnancy status, sexual orientation, and gender identity. And we've, through a national survey, we've seen that when there is a gay-straight alliance within the schools, the number of bullying, harassment based off of sexual orientation and gender identity decreases immensely. So the Illinois Safe Schools Alliance is currently working with technical support in the same way as the YAC, building mission statements, getting themselves recognized within their school, and kind of addressing those bullying issues that they have within their school. So currently Richwoods and Peoria High School have gay-straight alliances. We're working with them. Manual and Woodruff have shown interest in starting GSAs as well.
Do you have any questions for the students? We've had a lot of conversation with them about just about kind of stepping up as leaders, and they are just such a critical piece of this. They're going to be working with their peers and being student leaders. We told them. Obviously the base here and what's driving this whole thing is because, we have those high rates. We were identified as one of 15 priority districts in the state because of our high rates of teen births and STIs. So they know that that's why we started this. So moving forward, they're going to be our students who are going to be working with students to try to decrease that at-risk behavior that would lead to.
What would be the recommendation from the students? So if I'm approached by parents, this is, we should not be discussing this in our schools. What response should I be giving to parents? And I want to hear that from the students. Speak from your heart.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
So there will be some parents that say we should not discuss contraceptives and STIs with students. We should not be discussing that in a school setting. That should be something that should be discussed at home. What should be the response back to parents?
I feel that a lot of teens, I know within Manual, it's happening. Like, I feel like teens are having sex and they're getting pregnant, and I feel like we should rather be safe than sorry and try to prevent and get a lot of teens informed about the information instead of like letting them go about, because a lot of teens feel like a lot of stuff can't happen to them, like getting STIs or getting pregnant. But I feel like if you want to talk about it with your child in confidentiality, then you should. But I feel like it should still be aware at school, because that's where a lot of the bullying and gossip go around, and you get sexually active with your peers there.
Question. And this would be for all of the YAC members. You are going to meet obstacles in your position. You may even be ostracized. You will be talked about. You will be called names. Do you feel strongly enough? Are your convictions that strong that you would be able to withstand this?
You mean like with our peers? Mm-hmm. I feel like, yes, that we could be able to, because a lot of people would rather not talk about it and just like let it happen to them than be aware of it and know it. So it's like, if you're not trying to help, then you shouldn't comment at all.
That's very
Have you as students, have you started having much interaction with your peers yet over this whole subject? And if you have, are they being receptive to it?
We have not began. We are still in the beginning stages of our group, and soon, like Lucia and Marcus said, our group will be known and our group will be effective.
Okay. Very good.
What's that timeline? What's your timeline for getting active?
We are planning to be at Parent University at Trewin, in March, which is at Trewin. Yes, Lincoln is done already. Gosh, yes, Trewin in March. That's where we're starting, and then we will plan to be at the upcoming Parent Universities after that. This summer in our summer mailing, we'll be sending information to families, but again, that's one piece. The rest of this team is going to be continuing to meet. We'll continue our conversation with principals so that they can have opportunities in the school setting to educate their peers, and then they can work with the administration on how this is going to look in each school.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Another question. I'm sorry. We all know that when we start talking about sex education, sexually transmitted diseases, and so forth, everyone is not going to be comfortable in teaching this. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'd be very, very interested in knowing if a particular teacher does not feel comfortable in teaching sex education, how are we going to handle that? Is there can they opt out, or
Can
the teachers opt out?
Can the teacher opt out of, I really don't feel comfortable in teaching this? And the second part of that is that the assurance that if they do it, that they do it with integrity.
Sure. So that's been probably one of the biggest topics that we've tackled as a committee from the start. And that's why we pulled in all of the community partners that we possibly could that are currently teaching sexual health education in the schools, or any topic related to sexual abuse, healthy relationships, covering all of those topics. So we know that we probably will get some pushback from that. I think that the answer is that we all have to be on the same page. That's where our procedures manual will come into play, so that we will know how to answer the tough topics. Our community partners will be the primary educators for the topics that we are teaching. So we've taken who does really well at each topic and kind of divided it out among the community partners on who will tackle which topics and which grade level. So we've taken the toughest topics and kind of assigned them to different agencies.
Who are trained to do that.
Right, so the teachers won't have a large part in actually implementing most of the curriculum. What they will be doing is providing follow-up, being able to answer questions, and then referring them to the counselors that are on staff at each school. And they will also be participating in training so that they'll be able to answer those tough topics.
Mr. Cloyd?
Yeah, there are really three policy issues that we're going to be bringing to the board fairly soon. One of them is a revised bullying policy. We're required to update that every 2 years, and I believe we have to have that done by the 15th of April, and that encompasses a number of these topics and a broader definition that's been provided by, I believe, the State Board of Education. That's where that's coming from?
Actually, the legislature wrote the definition.
Well, the legislature wrote the definition, and then it's implemented through the state board and so forth. That's number one. Number two is in terms of the curriculum itself, and then number three is the ability for parents to opt out if they are uncomfortable with their student being involved in this type of a classroom situation. So those are three policies that really directly deal with this, and we expect to have something in front of you fairly soon on those. And we've had a couple of meetings with the members of this group to talk about how to coordinate the timing and the communication with the community and our parents and their families, the students, so that they know that this is something that's going to be in place for the next school year.
Yes. And am I correct, do I remember correctly when this first came up? This is something we're mandated to do.
If we choose to teach sexual health, we now have to include abstinence as well as contraception.
Okay.
Okay, so we already were teaching sex ed, and we were teaching, pro-abstinence. We now, per law, have to teach contraceptives also.
Maureen. Kind of piggybacking off of Mr. Cloyd, on the policy committee, I think it would be very, very beneficial to us if at one of our meetings prior to the implementation of this, if we could have 2 or 3 members of the Youth Advisory Council present at one of these meetings.
Okay.
Is that possible?
Alex wants to be here. Yes. So we would have to reschedule, we'd have to schedule it after school,
We could do that.
possibly?
We can do that.
Sure. So it fits with their schedule. We don't take them out of class to do that. So.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I wanted to get clarification. Earlier, I believe someone said that the age for dispensing contraceptives and that, 12 years old and above?
Yes, that's
12 and
correct.
above? Okay, so my question is, if you don't have to get permission from a parent, how would a parent opt out of the services for anyone 12 and above?
Well, I think there's a differentiation between opting out of the education
Okay.
versus, yes.
It's the classroom
So-
portion of it.
Yes, correct. Yes, I mean, the parents can opt out of the education, and then again, in the clinic, if a student comes down for contraception, we highly encourage them to have a parent involved, but they can certainly obtain the services without parental consent. They can consent to that themselves.
That's all I have for the students, but I do have a couple of.
I just wanted to say thank you to the students. It's not easy to come here, and so I know you're nervous, and we really do really appreciate hearing from the students and seeing you come, because that tells us about your commitment and that you do believe in this, and that you are going to be successful. That's just what you told us, and so that's what's going to happen. So I do appreciate you guys coming and sharing your thoughts with us. And I think it'll be good for you to go to the policy committee, which will be a little bit smaller scale.
And we'd also
So-
like to invite one of you or several of you to attend a couple of our YAC meetings so that you have an opportunity to meet with the students.
Okay.
So we appreciate it. You do have the action plan included. If you have questions, you know where to find me regarding the action plan. If you have any more questions, let us know. Otherwise,
I think Mrs. Ross had some, not
Go
for
ahead.
the students,
Well, I didn't
but
have
in
anything
general.
for the students, but I had
Okay.
just a couple other questions.
Okay. Do you want to talk about them now?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Going back to the statistics.
Just a second.
The statistics that you had on the board there, and you said that you extensively studied 6160, 05, 03, and 04, I believe.
Yes.
Those the three. But yet you showed statistics for the rest of the county. So how did you get those statistics for the other zip codes? That you showed like 14% for the rest of the county.
Yes, so for the teen birth ones, for example, so we're very lucky in our county. First of all, for sexually transmitted diseases or infections, by state law, they're reportable to the health department. We follow up on every single positive, and I say positive test, because one, that means someone has to be tested and has to come back positive, and we will follow up to make sure they are properly treated. Part of that is we gather basic demographic data such as address, gender, things of that nature. So that's how we're able to break it down to a zip code level. We're also very lucky in our county because vital records or birth and death records are actually housed within the health department. So everyone that's born in our county, which actually includes multiple residents of different counties, if you can imagine, because of our two large health systems, it gets processed through the health department as well. And part of that, when you have a birth certificate, again, maternal age, as well as we collect information on maternal age, the number of pregnancies. So, for example, You might be a teen mother at the age of 17, but this is actually your third pregnancy. That information is collected, as well as, again, general demographics like zip code.
Okay, so if you go through private service and do not go through the health department, you really can't determine.
No, ma'am. All sexually transmitted.
Not the birth, but the sexually transmitted.
All of them come through the health department, even private services. It is by state law that it's mandated to be reported to the health department.
That's what I'm wondering about.
Is that it? Any other questions?
Thank you. I want to thank everyone that's here. We have several community members that are here also supporting, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Chris, we're not done, sorry. Okay, we have one last group with us this evening. This is where the tomatoes come out, right, Tim? Okay, so last but certainly not least, we have our student support staff team tonight to present to you regarding how we're doing regarding helping students in the school setting. So Michelle Coconati, if you guys want to come on down. We have several team members here tonight who are going to give us a brief overview of what's happening in our schools. Michelle Coconati, as you know, oversees our response intervention support systems for staff members and students. So Michelle assisted with helping gather some of the data for this presentation tonight. We've got several staff members here who are in the buildings of Annie Mayo and Carlos Evans. They are from Glen Oak. Charity Turnbull is from Family Corps, and she works at Lincoln. Zach Lowe is the school counselor at Rolling Acres, and Sherry Lemie is the school counselor at Mark Bills. So they're going to give us an overview of where we're going and where we've been.
All right. So that second slide was just how support staff are involved, and they named all of us and our titles, and that's very nice. And then we go to that second slide. I'm sure you guys have all seen the RTI pyramid. There's an academic side, there's a behavioral system side, and if I could speak for us a little bit more, I think that a lot of us work on that behavioral side. We do support with the academics, but a lot of us implement interventions at that tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 level. Tier 1 being the bottom level, 2 in the middle, 3 at the top. And that universal level is where we focus a lot of our efforts to keep students in that space, and that's why we want it to be the largest, at 80 to 90%. And then some students who do need that more support, as indicated by the data through Skyward and through Pinpoint, end up at that tier 2 level. And I think some of the schools use different indicators to determine that. But when they get there, we support them whether they're transfer in or they get there in our building, and we implement interventions there. And then when you look at that tier 3 level, if a student is not meeting those expectations to maintain in the tier 2 or the tier 1 level, then we are looking to include the PPS team to support us in those students, in those interventions, and we're definitely including parents at every level. So that's that piece.
So this is just an overview of how we might be assisting, and it's different.
Sorry.
Sorry. It's different in every building, what it looks like exactly, how support staff are involved. Counselors and social workers. For example, at Glen Oak, we have the privilege of having a school-based social worker as opposed to a social worker that's spread out over several buildings. Mr. Evans is housed only with us. And so his role looks a little bit different than another social worker, right? And the PPS team, yeah. There's a little bit of difference there. And counselor-wise, it just depends on that building's needs. As we know, every school has different programs going on and has different needs, and so it looks a little bit different. So we just gave an all-inclusive list here of things counselors might be involved in. In terms of crisis response, this could mean something as small as building level, something like a threat assessment. If a child were to make some kind of comment involving a threat maybe to somebody, or there's a safety concern there, we respond. And this can go as far out as district-wide, where we respond to a serious traumatic event that's happened in the community. Data analysis, we constantly are looking at our data, like Mr. Evans mentioned, through Pinpoint and Skyward, and that's how we base which students need the support services. Second step just happens to be the program that we use at Glen Oak, and I believe at some other schools as well. This is a violence prevention curriculum that every single classroom gets. Mr. Evans and myself deliver those lessons on a weekly basis. Developing booster incentives and encouraging positive reinforcement of pro-social behaviors. This is just PBIS, and we serve on our PBIS team and help to develop all of the supports that puts in place. Helping students de-escalate. We're often called upon as anytime there's a child, who's having a hard time, we come in and we help get them calmed down and get them redirected if need be. The ULT team, we can serve as members on that. PBIS, as I mentioned before, teacher support and professional development. So we're considered resources for our teachers to come to if they have behavioral concerns in the classroom. We help with that. If we go out and attend a PD, we're expected to come back and share out with our teams and with staff-wide if it's something that they can use in their classrooms. And anti-drug awareness, Red Ribbon Week, and the anti-bullying is National Anti-Bullying Month, and that happens throughout October, as well as just some other things that we do. Those are the two big ones, but we do autism awareness and different things throughout the year.
Absolutely. And with the crisis response, Ms. Mayo spoke on a few of those things, but we conduct threat assessments when students make threats of harm to themselves or to teachers or to students. We definitely take every threat seriously, and we're pulled into a situation to assess the situation to determine if there is lethality. We're contacting the parents and things of that nature, and if we have to go to a different level of intervention with that student, then we will when it comes to using community resources like SAS, screening assessments and support services to do mental health assessments and things like that. That's where that can go, and we are utilized at that level. We participate on the building level crisis team for bomb threat drills and tornado drills and fire drills. We're viewed as leaders during that time, and we meet with our administrators to develop plans for those on how to react for students and for staff. We do a lot of grief counseling when students lose somebody in their family or community, something happens in the community. We also do that at other schools when asked. We do press interviewing when it's time to talk to the press about what's going on if we are designated as those people. We also link families to community resources as well. I spoke about SAS. We work with DCFS. We work with the Center for Prevention of Abuse. They're actually the ones who are working with in our particular building, the 5th and 6th grade students on second step, because our schedules are really packed. So we ask for help and we work with them when we can, and they have no problem with it. Mr. Scott is great, and the leader over there is great as well. These are future roles that we have been tapped to support in from Mrs. Langhoff and Mrs. McKinnon that we're excited to be a part of and be considered, and they were both spoke about earlier today.
Okay, so these are the first 3 bullet points you see here. Check in, check out, social academic instructional groups, and groups with individualized features. This is just on the spectrum of what RTI behavioral services are available. I'm not going to give you too much information because Sherry's going to go into more detail about what those incorporate. And then again, just going over, this is our level 2 involvement that we might have. So a lot of it I already mentioned before. Some different things here are if they get to the level 3 and we're still not seeing a whole lot of response, then we're going to create something called a BIP, Behavioral Intervention Plan, and that starts with the FBA, the Functional Behavior Assessment. So we're going to conduct both of those where we serve on a team that does that together, and we're responsible for classroom observations and for writing those plans. We're all going to, oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, go ahead.
We also serve on the problem-solving teams, which tracks how interventions are working for students, and this also goes to the level of getting special education services involved if need be. And I think a lot of this is repeat information, just so you can see our roles at each level. The Y-Try groups, Y-Try is a curriculum that we've implemented that we use with intensive children. It's a behavioral curriculum. And I think there are other things we covered.
Good evening. So going back to the Tier 2 kids that would be at the yellow level, some of the interventions that we do and we complete in the schools, one of them would be the check-in, check-out, SITCO. This is where a student is actually given a DPR, daily progress report. They report to a facilitator every morning. They are given pre-corrections and they're reminded of our school-wide expectations. At the end of each class period, they're provided feedback from their classroom teachers, and that feedback is to assist them in making better choices throughout the rest of the school day. They then report at the end of the day to their facilitator and provide their DPR sheet. The DPR can also go home, and in some cases, parents sign off on the DPR sheets every evening just to see how their child is doing. So this is the check-in, check-out system. We also have SAGE groups, our social academic instructional groups. Annie already mentioned Y-Try as being one of our really cool resources that we utilize. Strong Kids curriculum, Second Step. But this is also an opportunity for students who are already completing check-in, check-out to work more closely with the counselor in a smaller group setting and complete these actual activities. Then we also move into, and again, we're still at the Tier 2, but these students are getting more intensified assistance. So GWIF, groups with individualized features. So they have their check-in, check-out, but now they have individualized features that are specific and catered to them specifically on what issues they need to work on or their daily goals of the problems that are occurring for them specifically. We also have mentoring, which involves an adult mentor, and the student is working with that mentor one day a week per se, or it could be multiple times throughout the day even. I have some students that check in the afternoon, mid-morning, afternoon, and at the end of the day. And it just helps to provide that supportive relationship because PBIS is all about building those relationships with our kids, and it's very good, and it's known to work as long as they have that relationship and they feel that someone cares about them. Next, little examples.
All right, so at Glen Oak, I was brought in about this is my third year, and Ms. Mayo's been here for about 4. And so that's why we started in 2012 and 13 with our data. Ideally, you would have 80 to 100% of your students, or 80% or more in Tier 1. That's a successful Tier 1. At Tier 2, you want to have between, I believe it's 10 to 15%, and at Tier 3, the ideal is 5% or below. That's the ideal. So in 2012 and 13, we were not quite there. We were working on implementing our Tier 2 system and getting PBIS up and running, and we had also just, received some new administrators. At 2013-14, we started to get a little bit better. We saw some growth. We got our Tier 1 as a team. I don't want to speak as if we're the only two that's doing this. This is a team approach. Staff, administration, parents, we're all working together to build up these numbers. But so we got a little better in 2013-14. We wanted to bring that Tier 3 down and bring that Tier 1 up. And then currently, we're at 7% at Tier 3, 12% at Tier 2, and 82% at Tier 1, which, ideally, those are pretty good numbers.
So if you can think back to that triangle that we saw first, where the green is the largest and then smaller yellow, smallest red. So that's what we're going for. That's what those numbers signify. And so then we took a look at what our top 3 office discipline referrals are. This is the kind of data we're always analyzing. And these are the kind of behaviors that were coming through the office most often. So 3 years ago, we were looking mostly at aggressive actions, physical activity and fighting, and then disruptions. So that means that we were constantly concerned with why are our kids so aggressive with each other? What is causing the fights? How can we decrease the number of fights? Those were the kinds of conversations we can having. Where are they happening? What can we do in those areas? That kind of thing. So then it carried over to still aggressive actions, but fighting was off, which was huge for us. We were so excited about that because that speaks to PBIS really taking hold and a consistent language around the building being used, respect being increased, staff being able to communicate better with students and providing for their needs better, clear expectations across the board. If you go into buildings and you see their matrices, like Tree Wind has theirs posted right there, that's a PBIS matrix, and that's what the students use to guide their behaviors. And so this year, we're thrilled. We don't have aggressive actions at 1 or 2, it's dropped all the way down to 3, and so we're looking more at classroom disruptions, which, no ODRs are good, but at least we've taken fighting completely out of the equation. That's not really a huge occurrence in our building anymore, which is really wonderful, especially considering the amount of students we have at Glen Oak. We have very large numbers. And then the aggressive actions we're still concerned with, but now we're looking more, okay, what's going on in the classroom? How can we support these children? What's going on academically? And we're getting into more of those kinds of conversations. So it's been really wonderful.
What do you define or clarify as disruption?
That's an excellent question. And to look at the referrals, you would see a wide spectrum of what that can mean. And for some teachers, it's something as small as tapped his pencil 10 times. Speaking back to those ADHD behaviors that Ms. Kostick brought up earlier, those kinds of things. For some teachers, that is a huge disruption. Others, they can let it roll off of them. A disruption for another might be something like throwing a chair across the room. So you're going to see a wide range of behaviors considered disruption.
One thing that's not listed on there is that in 2012 and 13, we had a disproportionate amount of 6th graders represented at the top, and they were at 50% when they were way less percent of that of the school building. They were the lowest amount of students in the school building. At this point,
13, 14, they were 6th graders?
at 2012-13, it was 50% of our 6th graders who had most of the office discipline referrals. And since then, that has decreased tremendously. It's more accurate with how many students are actually in the building.
Thank you, Glen Oak. Zach is going to discuss Rolling Acres.
So one of the many aspects of support that we provide in the Rolling Acres building is we are allowed to have these our YTRA after-school groups due to a generous grant provided by the United Way. Jan Leonard is our United Way contact, and she's been one of our biggest cheerleaders for the YTRA groups in our building. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to run these groups through the United Way because we have seen a lot of positive change and a lot of growth in our students. We've seen overall improved grades across across all curriculum, the core classes and the on-core classes as well. We've seen a 20% reduction in discipline referrals in the 5th and 6th grade group. We have 3 students in that group who have received 0 discipline referrals at all since the groups began in early November. For our older students, our 7th, 8th grade groups, we've also seen improved grades, and again, that's across the board, on core classes and core classes alike. We have 2 students who have received 0 discipline referrals since November, and we have 1 student who has seen a 50% reduction in his discipline referrals. So we've seen a lot of academic and behavioral growth in our YTRI groups. YTRI is a curriculum that the district trained me on in the 2012-2013 school year. And not a day has gone by since my training where I haven't used YTRI in some capacity. It is a very, very great curriculum. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to provide it to students, and students respond very positively to it.
Are the after-school groups voluntary, or do you go out and sort of try and encourage certain students to go to the after-school groups?
There's definitely that encouragement, and there's also teacher referrals and administrative and even parent referrals as well.
Okay.
How many students would you say are participating? I mean, how are you measuring that 3 students, 1 student? How many, out of how many?
We use Skyward and Pinpoint data to get that information. So that comes from just district.
I mean, is this an entire, all of your 5th grade classes, or how many students are participating?
Okay, no, we have 6 5th and 6th graders, and we have 6 7th and 8th graders, so we have 12 total students.
12 students, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Can you just mention, Ms. Costa wanted to know about the United Way grant. Can we just talk about the fact that that's open to all schools to apply? I see heads shaking by principals out there also. Can you just kind of talk about that?
Yeah, that comes from the Supporting Student Success Grant, and we are not the only building that has a Supporting Student Success Grant. Many schools across the district have it. Mark Bills has it.
Had it. Mm-hmm. Whittier.
Mm-hmm.
Roosevelt.
So just to clarify, if you have about 6 in each group, then 50% of each of those groups has improved tremendously on the number of referrals they were down.
We have the benefit of having, we run from November all the way till March, so we meet quite a bit. The students get really into it. We talked today. Whenever I run a group, I like to talk about closure at the end, which is one of the 5 stages of running a group. And the closure is kind of hitting them hard, and it's hitting me hard too, because it's quite a long journey from November to March for the students. So we're gonna close things out here in a couple weeks. I believe the week before we have our parent-teacher conferences. We're gonna have kind of our party and our reflection period. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Charity is going to address Lincoln next.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Charity Turnbull. I am an employee of Family Corps, but I am an acting a family school liaison at Lincoln K-8. I have a supervisor there. Her name is Chris Bachler. She's wonderful. And I also, my boss is Ron Tyler. And together we have recently renewed a United Way grant that funds a program that I do run at Lincoln K-8. It contains 2 interventions, as you can see on the screen. The first one is mentoring. This is the closest that we get at this point in time to our SAGE groups. We call them skill groups. And the second intervention then is prevention education. Within both of these interventions, there's also 2 components, as you can see at the top. The first component is growing in their knowledge, and the second component is demonstrating the skills that are being taught. So if we focus on the mentoring first, you'll see that from January, the beginning of the school year, up until August, 29 students have been served. These students, not only do we meet in one-on-one settings, but again, those group settings as well to focus on those skills. We measure the growth in knowledge using a pre-post test. This is done quarterly, and it's given to the students at the beginning of the quarter, and then obviously taught and monitored through the quarter, and then reassessed again at the end, and 86% of them have shown that they have grown in their knowledge. Of these 29 students, again, 100% of them have shown that they are able to demonstrate the skill. That does not mean that they demonstrate them on a daily basis all the time. We are all humans and we all make mistakes, but they do have the ability to demonstrate the skills that are being taught. This is measured with a staff skill rating form that are skill specific to what that individual student is working on, and is documented on a weekly basis, typically in a classroom setting, but it could happen in any school setting. Both of these data points are then put into an Excel spreadsheet that we keep track of, and then is submitted to United Way on a quarterly basis in a different document, obviously, what United Way is wanting. The second intervention then is the prevention education. This is done in the actual classroom, which is why you see a significantly higher number of students have been served. From the beginning of school, August, to then in January, looking at the data, you can see that 311 students had been served. And again, we measure the same 2 components. So the growth in knowledge is measured again with a pre-post test, and this is done on a daily basis. When I enter into the classroom, I give them the pre-test. And then before I leave the classroom, after the skill has been taught, typically with the Y-try that has already been mentioned, we usually hit a metaphor there. Before I leave the classroom, then they are given a post-test, and that's how they are able to show that they have grown in their knowledge. On that same post-test is how we measure whether or not they're able to demonstrate the skill. They are given a scenario question, and then basically they have to apply the skill that they have learned in order to answer the question correctly, showing that they could demonstrate the skill in a given situation. So that's really all that I have for you tonight. Yes, ma'am, any questions?
I kind of want to know how this translates into the triangle, the RTI. How is this information, how does it fit in there?
That is a great question. Because our skill groups are the closest that you would ever get to the SAGE groups that were discussed earlier, this would be considered, the mentoring would be considered a Tier 2 intervention, which would be in that middle part of the triangle. But then the classroom is obviously Tier 1 because all students are receiving it when I go into that classroom.
Right, but then there's no way to measure whether or not the behavior has changed, right? But you said they have the knowledge, whether they used.
Reduction in office referrals would be a way to measure. So basically,
Yeah, but that wasn't what she
back
said.
to like that previous slide that was about with Glen Oak. So you look at those reductions in those different infractions.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I don't see anything relating to the reduction She said they have the knowledge, they learn the knowledge. They don't always use it, but they have the knowledge and the capability. But I was wondering how it translated into a reduction in office referrals.
And that information would be available within Skyward and on Pinpoint. And Michelle Coconati and I did pull that up and look that there had been a reduction, but because I am working for United Way necessarily, that's the data that I'm tracking. But we would be able, if with a school social worker, to sit down and see how it truly correlates.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, at Lincoln, we're not at that point right now.
Okay. We can give you the data on discipline referrals and reductions.
Thank you. Renee Andrews is here to represent True Win.
Yes, good evening. I'm filling in for our counselor, Linda Peebler. And at Tree Win, we also have a check-in and check-out. We currently have 24 students who are participating in check-in, check-out. 9 of our students have graduated since September. We have a good problem, is that the kids don't want to leave the program. They still want to stay in. They really appreciate and look forward to the one-on-one interaction, and they get to know a variety of staff members, not just the teachers that are providing their instruction. We finally have up and running some SEG groups. We have 15 students. Some of the types of problems or issues that they are working on are pro-social, problem solving, and academic behavioral skills. We are using Second Step in the classroom to support social emotional skills, and what's not listed here is we are also doing Why Try as well. Mrs. Peevler, our school counselor, is addressing the developmental needs of our students. She is running groups based off of data and teacher referrals, and some of our groups are based on friendship, classroom survival skills, anger management, and conflict resolution. Our Tier 2 group meets pretty regularly, sometimes 3 to 4 times a month, because we are constantly looking at our students' data and determining whether or not what we're doing for them is meeting their needs or whether or not they're being successful. And here recently, we were also blessed with a children's home therapist who has also jumped right in and is helping us with some of our SEG groups and check in and check out. And it is a male, and some of our boys have really taken to him, and they look forward to meeting with him. I guess they think he can meet their needs better, but so that is Tree Win. Thank you.
And Michelle is going to give a quick overview of TJ.
Kind of at the last minute, TJ was unable to come, so I am going to talk to you a little bit about this, and I'll address Mrs. Ross's question about numbers just a little bit, and I'll use this slide to do it. So one of the things that we're really focusing on, all of the schools and school teams have received professional development on Tier 1 and Tier 2 PBIS interventions over the last several years. So what we're really needing to focus on, and really are focusing on, is that intervention effectiveness, which is, I think, what Mrs. Ross was talking about a bit. How do we know that something is working? So the effectiveness goal, the overall goal, is to be at 70% or higher effective. So that means if you would look at check-in, check-out in November, and actually Thomas Jefferson happens to be effective all 3 months that are shown here, November, December, and January, in check-in, check-out. It means that 70% or higher of their students are responding. If you go down to the next line where it says Social Academic Instructional Groups, or SAGE, in November, they had 86% of students responding. In December, there were 66%. So what happens then is that that team needs to look at their system. How can we improve our system? Why aren't students responding to what we're doing right now? So we know that when 70% or higher students aren't responding, that we have a systems issue, an adult issue in the building that we need to look at and make adjustments with. And then in January, they made that correction, and 100% of their students responded to that group. Likewise, you can look at the data for the groups with individualized features. It's a constant journey to be looking at, to use data to respond to the needs of students. And this is where we have a focus right now. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, then we have Kevin and Linda from Harrison who are going to talk a little bit about what's happening at Harrison.
So me and Ms. Cobb had an agreement that she would speak, but apparently that agreement is thrown out the window. Nonetheless, thank you all for having us here, Dr. Lathan and distinguished board members. Looking at our data is no different than many other schools that we've seen up here. What you'll see, though, is I guess in between 2012 and 2013, our numbers were okay at the tier 1 level. We started to see a drop off. A lot of that is considered to the new influence we had at our school. We had a new administration. We also had the presence of elite come on in. And then you start to see the increase in tier 1, tier 2, the reduction in tier 2 and so forth in terms of our needs. That's been a great having the elite in the building, but I think that also skews our data a little bit, just to be frank with you all, because they do some interventions that don't always get documented and so forth. So that's a merging of the two entities that we're trying to sift through as we speak. Absolutely. Moving forward, you'll see the HAWKS program. The acronym stands for Helping a Winning Kid Succeed. It's again, check in, check out our first semester numbers, 38 total students, 76% of those students responded, 18 graduated. So we were fairly successful during that first semester. I left, had a child, Ms. Cobb kind of manned it as well the second semester. So we've had to work some things and get our HAWK system back up and running with the integrity and the fidelity that we did during the first semester. But things are starting to pick up. As you see with our SAGE group, we have Young Lions, which is a culturally relevant group. YTRI has been successful with some of our groups, but the kids weren't able to sustain that momentum that we built. And I think because we kind of, this is me maybe moving into a different tangent, but we sort of devalue some of the kids' culture. And so what we try to do with Young Lions is add value to their culture and talk about some of the things like code switching, how do we handle ourselves in different environments. So that's proving to be somewhat successful as we're starting. Strong Kids, which is already something that I think Sherry spoke about. Girls Group, which is a group Ms. Cobb runs, and she can speak to it if you like to.
Good evening. This is Linda Cobb. I do the girls group with a coworker that's also with the family liaison with the family core as well. We have a group of 8th graders. There are 11 girls, supposed to have been 12, but one decided to drop out because she didn't think it was something beneficial to her, so we have 11 total. We meet with these girls once a week. Basically, it's based on dealing with social, emotional skills. They have low self-concept, low self-esteem about themselves. We did a pre-test to see where they were. Each week we have different topics. We also have someone from the community that comes in and work with us as well. They enjoy working with it. They're looking forward to coming every Wednesday, meeting with us. We have a guest speaker coming with this month being awareness for healthy relationships. We have someone from the Center for Prevention of Abuse is coming tomorrow on Wednesday to talk to our girls about healthy relationships. We also have someone scheduled to talk to them that does hair, so the cosmetology department is coming talking with them. So we're trying to build their self-esteem and self-confidence, because we all know that if they have low self-esteem and self-concept, that can lead to other issues, because with suicide being the number 2 leading cause for our teenagers, 12 to I think 18 or 24 I think it is. So we try to build that self-confidence with them so that they will get to a better concept of themselves. Let's Talk group is our group of 6th graders that we just started last week, because teachers were telling us that there are a lot of conflict going on with our girls, so we're starting a group with them, just started last week. Let's Talk, basically, we sit around, we talk about issues. It's a free time for them to talk about concerns that they have and how they can solve conflict more peacefully instead of fighting, name calling. So that was just to initiate last week. We're still in the beginning stages of that. New Students Group, I started that one in October, and that was just, I asked teachers if you had new students to our building for the first time, giving their names, and I think we had about 18 students. And we met every week, and I did 3rd grade through 8th grade. 8th graders did not want to come. They felt like, hey, I don't need to be here. So they wanted to go to their encore class, and I did not make them come because I wanted it to be a comfortable environment. So we did 3rd through 7th grade, and we talked and we bonded, and we did all different bonding activities so they felt worthy to our school and make them feel comfortable. And we had everybody to graduate from that program as well. I'll go ahead and talk on the family core support because that is the person that works with me with Strong Kids. That is Mrs. Burrell. She's there in the building. She helps with student council as well. She helps with my girls group, and she's also doing Let's Talk group. So we communicate with each other. She's the one that has been able to make the bridge, that communication piece with the community associates that are coming in to talk with our girls. So she's working very carefully with me, closely with me in that aspect.
Just in addition, there was something that I guess wasn't necessarily discussed, but we also go into the classrooms once a month to conduct those character ed lessons, much like was done in Second Step, but Glen Oak took our person. Nonetheless, though, myself and Ms. Cobb have just found creative ways to come in and teach different lessons to the students across all grade levels, with the exception of kindergarten through 2nd. But that's been very impactful in terms of decreasing our numbers at the Tier 1 level, at the school-wide level in PBS terms.
And I think that as we're finished for tonight, but I want to share just one piece of data that is very promising. Since 2012, and looking at just August through January, since we aren't finished with the school year, and I want to kind of compare apples to apples here, but our Tier 1, that green area of the triangle, when we look at office referrals, shows students with 0 to 1 office referral. So across the entire district in 2012, between August and January, we had 64% of students who had 0 or 1 office referral. In 2014-15, the year we're in right now, we are at 73%. So we have shown some real growth. And that again addresses what Mrs. Ross was talking about, is how do we show that growth? So we show it by that green area increasing and the yellow and the higher needs of students decreasing.
Thank you. Can we go back to the question that Ms. Costick asked earlier? So you have a student that that's been diagnosed with ADHD, and we feel that they need an IEP. Can we talk about the process of the step that leads up to an evaluation?
Okay, so that is the RTI process, and basically, sorry. I'm just going to bring the triangle back up so that there's a visual. 80 to 90% of students in our, ideally, will respond to what we're doing for all students. That's your, academically, that's your curriculum. Behaviorally, that's that matrix right over there that Trewin has hanging on the wall. Kids do what they need to do. Some kids, and this is where we start getting into that, need a little bit more support. And so we need to provide that for them. That would be then Tier 2. All of the things that everyone has talked about here today relate to that. Check-in, check-out, social academic instructional groups, groups with individualized features. So those students that you were talking about, Ms. Costick, would be placed into one of those groups for some added support. Okay? Pardon me?
What if that doesn't work?
If that doesn't work, then we need even a little bit more support. And that is where we're moving this coming year, is planned, is to provide training for that Tier 3 level, which we should ideally have 1 to 5, and I actually have the number right now. As of today, we are at about 12.9% of students in our district who are in that top tier, that red level. That would mean that they have 6 or more office referrals for behavior.
And so what happens with them is we get a little bit more individualized support. We look at having individual interventions, support from the people you heard from tonight, and also behavior intervention plans. So we look more at the function of their behavior and try to respond to that and specialize their interventions a little bit more. So the interventions really, beginning at Tier 1, become just more intense as we go and more specific to student need.
How do we document that information?
So that is documented by the check-in, check-out is one of the main pieces that we do. So every child, typically, most children, would still have that daily progress report throughout. And so we would hope that the added supports that they would be given would have effect on their check-in, check-out data. We would also look at a decrease in office referrals or minor behaviors that are happening in the classroom that are also documented by the teachers, whether that go into Skyward as a minor behavior or some teachers have the discipline charts within their classrooms. Another way would be that their academic achievement would increase. Any other questions? Thanks for letting us share.
Hold on a second. Don't go anywhere yet. Okay, first of all, on the RTI process, earlier you mentioned that it looks a little bit different in every school you go into based on the needs of the student population. We have substitutes that work across multiple schools in that. How are they supposed to know then from one school to the next if each one looks different?
Well, the basic premises of PBIS are always the same, no matter what building you go to, and it's a universal program. So every school that's a PBIS school, which I believe is implemented across the district, is going to have the matrix posted. It's going to have their school-wide expectations. And what we've done specifically to address the substitute issue is every teacher is required to have a subfolder, and it specifically has all their information about PBIS, how it works at that school. And so we developed that, we worked with our team to develop that for Glen Oak. And then I know something we've implemented in the past and that some schools might other do too, is when you pass out, we call it charge or change, it's the reinforcer tickets that's part of PBIS. It's worth double when your sub hands it out. So we try and put small incentives into place to make the transition smooth for subs and to help them implement PBIS successfully.
Okay. Second, on the reduced referrals. There's two ways that referrals are reduced. The program's actually working, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, or teachers are throwing their hands up and they're not sending them. So because I hear this, my own daughter who goes to Richwood say, teachers should be doing something about this kid and they've just quit. So either what we're doing is working, or the teachers are not consistently applying the discipline policies of the district across the board. My concern is it's the latter, that they're not being consistently applied across the board and our students are suffering as a result. I'd like somebody to talk to that.
Okay, this is Michelle, and I know that you can't see me, so hi. Working on the systems that are in place is a constant activity that the PBIS teams are doing within the school. So there's a Tier 1 team in every school that looks at school-wide supports, and there's a Tier 2 team that looks at those targeted interventions. So that when we see those issues pop up in the schools, the principals and assistant principals are active participants on those teams, and that those are issues that are discussed within those meetings. But of course, that can be happening in some schools.
Michelle.
Yes.
Okay. I'm
sorry, it's hard not to look at who I'm talking to.
I recognize your voice. I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to dovetail on what he was saying. There are activities within the PBIS and RTI that as a teacher responsibility, has that changed? Because I was one of the original PBIS, original persons trained in PBIS, but there's certain types of activities that the teacher is supposed to work with before making a referral. Is that correct? Aren't there steps that there are certain things they're supposed to take care of?
Schools set up systems to support that. So every school in the district has systems pieces in place. So they have not only the matrix that you guys see hanging up there, they have levels of behavior for both majors and minors. They've had discussions on what are those majors. I think one of the questions was, what does disruption look like?
Right.
There are cool tools, so there's a teaching system in place where lessons are taught based on what the data is showing. So those things are all in place. Now, as we all know, no matter what our job is, systems are something that we have to work on constantly.
Is that okay if I make further comment, Mr. Bateman? Sure. I think that's a wise comment, and it's absolutely true. We've had those conversations several times in our meetings. I would say the difference at Glen Oak is that you can feel it when you walk in the building. And I don't want to make it sound like a touchy-feely kind of thing that you can't measure, but literally we've had so many parent comments and positive feedback saying there's a difference in our building. You can feel it and the climate of the building. And we've just seen a significant reduction in behaviors of the children, so.
And I think that you would, I absolutely agree with Annie. When you walk into a building that has a strong system in place, you can feel it. You see it in the respectful students and adults speaking respectfully even to each other and to students, so you can really feel it. So come out and visit and see.
Well, and I can attest to that too. I've been in the 3 high schools many times, and in the last 2 or 3 years, the change, just, you're right, just the level of noise or the number of kids in the hallways or just the feel of the building, it has changed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know sometimes these presentations get a little long, but like I've said before, I think all of us as board members appreciate getting this information. So it's important that we hear from the teachers and from the staff who are out there working with the students. Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the February 9th, 2015 meeting.
Second.
Would you call the roll?
Aye. The printer that you got me in my first year was great. And then recently, like the Black Page Network and something like that.
Aye.
So I did some research, and it seems like a
Thank you. We are now at audience opportunity to address the board. As a reminder, this is a business meeting of the Board of Education held in public, not a public meeting. It is not a question and answer session, and it is not a debate, so there will be no response from the horseshoe unless one of us has comments once the audience comments are completed. Recognizing everyone's First Amendment rights, we still ask that you refrain from speaking about subjects or topics relating directly to district personnel and also those not germane to the Board of Education's authority. We also ask that you refrain from using inappropriate language and keep a civil tone to your remarks. Please also keep in mind that just because something can be said does not necessarily mean that it should be said. When you are recognized, please come to the podium and give your name for the record. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. No one under 18 years of age may address the board unless accompanied by a parent, guardian, or a teacher without the consent of the majority of the board. Board members are also available by phone and/or email. This contact information is available on the district website and in the school calendars that parents receive from their school. Terrence Speyer.
Good evening, Board of Education, Dr. Lathan, members of the audience. It's hard to come up here and talk about things without reinventing the wheel, but I had some thoughts that I'd like to reflect on, 2 thoughts, one of which is this perspective from a teacher. When I was a teacher and I walked into a school building, it was like walking into a family. The support staff, all the way from resource officers down to the night custodian, they were there as a family. Everybody felt secure and everybody felt happy. And I tried to look at that from the perspective of a student, they must feel the same way. They must feel a sense of a being, a sense that people care, and a sense that they know where they're at every day. When you take somebody from a building and move them to another place, you are taking away the first line of defense in building a rapport in the school. I think it's very important that we realize that we are trying to change discipline in positive ways, and I think by doing that, I think our resource officers and our support staff, along with teachers, they're our first line of defense. And I would also like to comment on the second thing that happened recently this last week, where Caterpillar has decided to stay in Peoria. I think that is a big shot in the arm for everybody. I think that we need to embrace that. We talked about different things when we had our support groups, and we talked about things when we had our group meetings, our 4 group meetings. I think we need to get together with them and realize that we need to work the problems in the district and have some good reflection and some good outcomes at the end.
Savino Sierra.
Sabino Sierra, 1708 South Stanley. I got a few complaints. One of them is we started late the meeting tonight. You're supposed to be setting the example. Also, it's kind of outrageous that you didn't let people that didn't have any power to come to the community center school. What do you think we build it for? So make a name for ourselves or what? This really, a lot of you people should be ashamed of yourself, really. And you think I get up here just to blow words? No, it's enough to make a preacher cuss. And one of these days, you're going to get a earful from me. And I don't believe, I believe in being civil, but when people aggravate you, it starts to get bad. So I hope you people, the next time we have something like that and people are without power, we're supposed to be Christians and whatever. We're going to take care of our citizens. That community center school belongs to the people, all the people. And you people that are trying to make rules and what have you, you better examine your conscience, okay? I'll talk to you next time.
Kathleen Deffenbaugh.
I came here tonight with something to say, and after I sat here for 3 hours and waited to get my chance to speak, decided from what I've heard that I needed to change what I was going to say. First, I want to speak to what Mr. Cloyd said when he was admonishing us for coming to the podium and speaking out against the district. I would have to say that the majority of the people that I speak to, which are your constituents, would agree with me with this statement. We are not here talking about teachers and what they do every day with our students. I have a special needs grandson. I know exactly what it's like, sir. You don't. Don't ever talk to people like that. Don't talk down to us. I've been here coming to these board meetings since December of 2013 because
Point of order, Madam Chairman.
It is time for
Point of order, Madam Chairman.
to understand where we as parents
She
of
has her 3
special
minutes.
education student comes from. First of all, it's a federal law that this district provide those services, and they do a fantastic job every single day. It's you that aren't doing your jobs. It's this board and Miss Superintendent that are not doing what they need to be doing in our district. You are failing us, and you don't listen. People come here every single meeting and talk to you from our hearts. Just like Mr. Sierra said, we don't come up here just to hear ourselves speak. We come up here because we care about our students. We get one shot at their education, one. We don't get do-overs. The school system in District 150 is failing. Our kids' reading scores show it, but yet you sit here and talk about how wonderful the reading program is. Really? Is that what the data is showing us? Everybody talks about, I've got a college education. If you can't look at the data and realize that we are in serious, serious trouble in this city, I don't know what more you people need, but I definitely think you need a reality check.
Terry Knapp.
Terry Knapp. I listened to the first presentation tonight, and I just want to say 20 years ago I was teaching, and everybody in my building did occupational exploration. We had the computer programs just like it was presented tonight. I mean, to present this as this novel is ridiculous. To tell the public this is new, that's a far cry. We did this 20 years ago and have continued for 20 years. It was part of our curriculum guide. So don't present things in that manner. I'd like to say on the special needs deal, I thought it was well done tonight, but I would like to urge the board to understand meds are provided in our schools. Jameson recently had meds provided for their schools by the parents for the kids. Drugs wound up missing. Somebody stole the drugs, okay? I had to take it upon myself to go to the state's attorney's office. You didn't go to the state's attorney's office. You didn't go to the police department to investigate it. You didn't even have your attorney spend the $140,000 you spent at Charter Oak badgering little kids, little third graders, to find out who stole the drugs. Somebody should have went to jail. That's what should have happened. So this should have been turned in. Somebody should have lost their job. And I hope the state's attorney and the police department get after this. I hope they've already contacted you. If they haven't, it's a crying shame. Last meeting, Sharon Cruz got up here and talked about three administrators that came here and got 32, 33, and 41 semester hours. Ms. Lathan simply blew it off. She went and had somebody run out of the room and get numbers that showed the teachers spent a lot of money on extra staff development going to colleges. I'll tell you that in your contract book is what is called the Teacher Academy. It doesn't say that today, but it refers to that. Our administration is supposed to be developing classes to teach these kids. The person who got 41 hours happens to be the instructional officer at 3 of our lowest performing schools, 2 of which are the lowest performing schools in the state, and she's taking 41 class hours of college education while her schools are failing. Please, help me figure this out. The other thing is she should be presenting to her people through the Teacher Academy so that they get their class hours so it doesn't cost this district, as Ms. Lathan said, thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's their fault.
Sharon Cruz.
You were all so embarrassed by the 2014 No Child Left Behind test results that for the first time in 10 years, you have not publicly reported the scores. At your last meeting, we were regaled with unbelievable accounts of successes in District 150 classrooms. This whole event was obviously orchestrated to discredit claims that too much money has been spent on programs that have produced little success. How could all district teachers be represented by only 10 presenters from only 6 schools, Franklin, Harrison, Rolling Acres, Trewin, Woodrow, and Valeska? Presenters included a 1st grade and an 8th grade math teacher. Reading success was touted by 3 of Valeska's preschool staff, a 1st, a 2nd, and a 5th grade teacher, and 2 interventionists. I can only imagine how these presenters were chosen and prepped. Even while they were presenting, Dr. Lathan played the role of ventriloquist, putting words into their mouths. In a typical class, there are students who raise their hands to answer every question. I remember that I was often tempted to believe that those students represented the whole class. when in fact there were two other groups of students, the ones who caught on to some of the material and the other group who understood little or nothing. Today, there's also a group that is focused on checking cell phone messages. The teachers who presented were not making up stories of classroom successes. They were just telling us about the responses of students who always participate. Believable accounts would be videos of teachers and their interactions with students. Don't expect us to believe subjective accounts prepared for a board meeting. Including students, as you did tonight, is so much more effective, and besides, they make me smile. Mrs. Wolfmeyer was so excited about these presentations last meeting that she stated there was no need for objective proof. Also, if you believe teachers will come to you with complaints about programs, you are fooling only yourself. Discipline problems and absenteeism remain as huge obstacles to classroom success. Committees of teachers once worked tirelessly on curriculum guides. Your website shows a hodgepodge of curriculum guides and lists of learning expectations, quite possibly lifted from other sources. As your website states, this is the first full year, a year of full implementation of Common Core standards, and no PARCC tests have been given, so your hype was much too premature and unprovable.
Jeff Atkins Dutro.
Jeff Atkins Dutro, proud president of the Peoria Federation of Teachers. Had a more lengthy speech. Given the hour, though, I have condensed. Consistently at the strategic planning forums, there's been a call for a change in leadership. I'd like to point out that if this issue is not made a priority and addressed as the new strategic plan rolls out, the strategic planning process as a whole cannot be considered legitimate. I'd also like to say probably the worst way to measure the success of a program or of a school or of a district is by sitting stagnant listening to a 3-hour presentation. If you want to know what is and what is not working, you need to get out into the buildings yourselves and find out. Spend 3 hours a month in our schools, not sitting there. We do have fantastic teachers implementing some quality programs, and as Mr. Cloyd pointed out tonight, this should be lauded. That said, success stories should not be used as a red herring in a futile effort to detract from the big picture, which takes me back to my first point. If the leadership issue is not made a priority and addressed as the new strategic plan rolls out, the process as a whole cannot be considered legitimate. Reduction in referrals, don't be hoodwinked by Skyward data. Lincoln teachers are told not to write referrals. When I met with several of them the other night, I said, let me get this straight. You are told not to write referrals. Yes, we are told not to write referrals. In fact, there's 3 pieces of paperwork that must be filled out by Lincoln teachers before anything can be entered into Skyward. Regarding Lincoln, you all received my email regarding the school. Spend 3 hours there this month and come back to report on how things are going. Are things improving? Are you going to check? Our SROs are operating at half capacity, 12 out of the necessary 26 officers. My membership has asked me to bring this to you as an immediate safety concern. If you continue to haphazardly transfer our remaining SROs, we're going to be in big trouble. To the several of you who have agreed to meet with the members of our executive board, thank you, and we will be in touch. If you'd like to visit Lincoln with me this week, let me know, and you can join me. Thank you.
Do any board members have any responses to the audience comments?
I would just like to say, Mrs. Wolfmeyer, that just because the strategic plan may not be what some want it to be, it does not mean that it was not done with all integrity and with purpose. There will be some things that will not be at the top of the list. There will be some things that won't make the list, but we will present what our findings are. And for those who did come to all 4 of the meetings, be it a sacrifice for you, however you got here and you participated, thank you very much, and you are honored for the work that you did.
Thank you. Brings us to information items. Purchase orders over $2,500. Do board members have any questions for Mr. Wilcoxon? Seeing none, that takes us to report of requests under the Freedom of Information Act and status of such requests.
Since our last board meeting report on February the 9th, 2015, we received 8 new Freedom of Information Act requests. Of these new requests, 4 were filled. There were 4 pending requests noted on the February 9th, 2015 board report. 3 requests were filled. We received 22 requests for this calendar year.
Thank you. That brings us to the consent agenda for tonight. It consists of gifts to the school district. The proposed action is that the donations be accepted in letters of appreciation sent to the donors. Payment of bills. Number 3 is a human resources report. The proposed action is the appointment, employment, compensation, performance, resignation, retirement, or discharge of an employee. Number 4 is the payment for travel. Number 5 is the Laredo Taft Field School contract. The proposed action is that the Board of Education approve the Laredo Taft Field School 2016 contract for 8th grade students attending Washington Gifted School. Laredo Taft is an outdoor educational program sponsored by Northern Illinois University. All 8th grade students will be attending the 5-day trip, March 14th to the 18th. Is this for 2016? Okay, we do it a year ahead. At a cost of $214.41 per student. Activities will include water study, team building, forest ecology, pioneering Native Americans, birds, mammals, weather, astronomy, night hikes, campfires, geology, survival, and crafts. Parents pay the fee for students to attend, but no child is denied attendance due to the fees. Number 6 is a field trip approval. The proposed action is that the Board of Education approve the field trip for select avid 9th through 12th grade students from Peoria High School per Board Policy 6:240. Students will travel to Charleston, Illinois, April 9th and 10th, 2015, visiting Eastern Illinois University to gain exposure to college communities and culture. This trip meets the requirements of the AVID program, which provides exposure to college and assistance with academics and admission to first-generation college students. The trip will be funded by Title I. Number 7 is the WCTC Cosmetology Field Trip Approval. The proposed action is that the Board of Education approve the overnight field trip for the WCTC Cosmetology, Barbering, and Hair Braiding students per Board Policy 6:240. Students will be attending America's Beauty Show 2015 at McCormick Place in Chicago, March 22nd and 23rd, 2015. There is no out-of-pocket expense to students. Are there any of the items on the consent agenda members want pulled for a separate vote? I need a motion and a second on the consent agenda then.
So moved. Second.
Did you want to make any comments on any of these, Dr. Lathan?
Just one note on the number of students for item number 7, the cosmetology field trip. It was initially reported as, I think, 24 students, but it's actually about 150 students combined because they're actually only taking 1 trip this year as opposed to 2. They normally take a trip in March. Half of the students will go in March and another half in May, but they're just going to do 1 trip this year.
Okay. Any questions or comments from board members on the items? The Laredo Taft field trip for Washington students, that's something they go on every year.
Annually, the 8th
Right.
graders participate in, yes.
They're going to get a whole lot in those 4 or 5 days. Any other comments or questions? Would you call the roll?
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mr. Bateman?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Aye. Brings us to the deliberation agenda and discipline.
Yes. Review of suspension. The proposed action that the review of suspensions listed on the report dated February 23rd, 2015 be approved as presented.
Second. Would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mr. Bateman?
Abstain.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Mrs. McClarty?
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 abstention.
Number 9, expulsion. Proposed action that the expulsions listed on the report dated February 23rd, 2015 be approved as amended.
Second. Would you call the roll?
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mr. Bateman?
Abstain.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
Students expelled by the board are referred to by number, thereby ensuring privacy. Board action concerning the students have been decided in executive session. Item number 10, revocation of expulsions held in abeyance. Proposed action that the revocation of expulsions held in abeyance listed on the report dated February 23rd, 2015 be approved as presented.
Second. Would you call the roll?
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mrs. Costello? Aye. Mr. Bateman?
Abstain.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 abstain, motion carries.
Thank you. That brings us to presentation and suggestions by board members. Mrs. Ross?
I have at least one suggestion in light of, and not necessarily in light of what happened this week regarding the warming center. I think it gives us, provides an opportunity for us to develop contingency plans with the community in mind, with all of our schools. Not necessarily, I know people talk about the community schools. I mean, the community schools are, all our schools are community schools. It's just that some of them, at least 3 that I know of, are slated as community schools so that, you know, companies can locate there, or we can provide extra curricular activities, that kind of thing, whenever possible. But if we could, if the administration could put together, and the board agrees, put together a committee to look at developing contingency plans for our schools, I think it would be to our advantage to have that in place.
Normally, most agencies put together, we have our plans in place. Normally, most agencies put together a plan, and then it's presented to the school districts or colleges or universities. But normally, they're on the forefront of creating those contingency plans.
I know, maybe, but we could take, you know, take the first step in reaching out to do that. I mean, you know, we can include the agencies if possible, but we don't know which agency may be, you know, involved in that kind of thing. But I think we should have a contingency plan ourselves. I know we have an evacuation plan where we go to other schools, and that's outside, you know, inside out. I'm talking about outside in.
Right, that's why I was saying, most times they create the plan and then it's submitted, as opposed to us creating a plan for that agency, because we wouldn't know.
I don't mean
the-
for an agency, I mean
Or
for
any-
the community.
Well, most times it start with a community or I see Reverend Butler's raising her hand, so I'll just speak.
I just want to add from my experience of working in social services and crisis care, normally what we get each year is a letter from the American Red Cross for agencies, organizations to indicate if they would be a warming center or a place for disaster care. And then they get those approvals, authorizations, and help to pull it together, because they are the major organization that's going to come with volunteers, come with food, all those other things. So each year they'll send out that request just to see who would be open and available to do that. So perhaps, and I can't say it didn't happen with that situation that most of us are familiar with, but just a call to the Red Cross with information we know all the time of, like, firehouses and different places like that that's open. They would have been able to have designated or indicated where in the community if they call for that type of action. So normally it is the American Red Cross.
Well, if I could just expound upon what I'm saying, I don't think there's a single person that knows more about crisis intervention and crisis preparedness than I do, spending 17 and a half years with United Way, actually creating the 211 number that tells you where all the resources are in the city, across the country. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm alluding to, and I know that agencies, but we're all in this together. These schools are located in the community, and people live in the community, and they come to our schools, and we need to, in my opinion, I may be the only one that thinks this way, is to have something in place just in case. I mean, we've been very lucky. We haven't had major catastrophes and major destruction, but it may happen. And if it does, what is our role? That's all I'm asking. What is our role in this?
And what I'm saying, our role would be what we have already agreed to for a community plan. It wouldn't be anything separate. It would be all collaborative. So as you speak about making sure that we are a part of it, when an agency such as the American Red Cross look at all the components of what needs to be done, there will be an indication of what we can do. So it's a more comprehensive plan that we don't need to take the lead in, we just need to participate in.
I don't mean for us to take the lead, and I certainly don't mean to argue about it. What I'm saying is, if we have a plan in place as a district on what our position is, then we have something to refer to, and the public will know what that plan is. Has nothing to do with, and I don't want to, it has nothing to do with the Red Cross, the United Way, the Salvation Army. I know about all those places. I set up warming centers across the city. Before you ever went to the Southside Mission, I worked with Phil and different ones, to help do that. But what I'm saying is, if we have our own plan as to how we're going to address our communities around the schools, then we have a plan that people will know about. That's all.
Mrs. Butler, my question on that is, so what you're saying is that the Red Cross is the starting point of
For community crisis
for
and care,
community crisis.
coordination.
But however, how would they know that as a district that we are available to become a warming center in the event of a crisis? There's got to be some way that we would let them know that
Right,
we
they
would be
would-
available for that. And I guess on the other side of it, if we have a plan, what is the plan?
I was just saying, the plan could be just as simple as saying that we are part of a collaborative effort, and when we have a community crisis or situation that various entities of the community need to be involved, we would get that call or that notification or whatever your designation that you are to perform. So if schools are needed, then they would let us know. The building. Yeah, they would lead the effort. They would let us know we need a large place where we can put down cots, different things like that. We'll bring the food in. You don't have to worry about that. It's a more concentrated effort to make sure things can run as smoothly as possible.
But we would have to let them know that we are available for
And
that.
to what capacity?
Well, I think it's very simple to start off with, is you reach out to the Red Cross and say, look, this happened last week. It wasn't feasible for us to get everything pulled together in a short time. We're willing to use our buildings. What do you need from us?
Yeah, just like that.
And see what they say. Then they can let us know what kind of information or what kind of service they need or what use they need. I mean, whenever you have a crisis, that's usually the first person that people call is the Red Cross. But we need to let them know that we are willing
That's what
to
I'm
work
saying.
something out. And
That's-
so I think that's the simplest
yeah.
thing to start with, is just to reach out to the Red Cross and say, what do you need from us?
Well, I didn't say who to reach out to.
Well, I think it
just
should,
said-
it makes sense to me that that's where we would start, is the Red Cross. Because whenever you have any kind of a crisis, that's who jumps in. Whether it's a
Salvation
house
Army.
fire, whether it's anything.
Yeah.
So that would be a place to start, Mr. Cloyd.
Well, I think we can have a very legalistic discussion about this, but I've worked for organizations where if we'd had that much lead time, we'd have had a plan and somebody down there and taken care of it. I think it was a leadership failure, and I think the district looked terrible in the way it responded.
Well, I'll just speak to that, say I disagree.
Welcome to disagree, but the community saw us as being uncaring and unresponsive, and that is a problem we've got, and we need to fix it.
It's not really a problem, it's a perception, and we are
It's a
here.
perception of this district, and we need to address it.
What you just heard
Okay.
tonight, Mr. Cloyd, was people caring. We care.
Yeah,
But
the
you're
time for
entitled-
caring was when we got the
everybody's
call,
entitled to an
and to respond to it. That building was open, There was a concert going on there. It was available to people, and they weren't allowed to get in. That's a problem.
And that's not the full truth. That's not the full truth.
Then we'd best get the story out, because I have not seen the
But
details.
that's not the truth.
Well, you
That's
can
not
say
the
what you want, but as far as I'm concerned, it was not handled properly. It was an insult to the community, and we should not do that again.
I believe that, here's the thing, whether it was done right or wrong, the thing is that we have to move past that
Yeah,
and move forward and do what it is that we need to do. I think it's very, it's just does not look good when you have board members bickering back and forth.
Thank you. If I want to speak the truth, I will.
I'm not saying, and I'm not going to get into a piss and mourning contest with you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Point of order. Let's move on, shall we? You can continue this afterwards if you would like to. Any other presentations or suggestions by board members? Any reports from board committees? Okay, I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
What email did you send out?
I sent out an email to board members Friday.
You didn't send, I found this tonight, that you sent it. You didn't send it to my regular email. You sent it to the district. You mean about the letter?